Project, Kenya Rural Roads Authority. Number 45, East Africa Trade and Transport Facilitation Project, the Kenya National Highways Authority. Number 46, Mombasa, Nairobi AIDS, Addis Ababa Road Corridor Development Project by Kenya National Highways Authority. Number 47, Improvement of Rural Roads and Market Infrastructure in Western Kenya Project, Kenya Rural Roads Authority. And lastly, number 48, the Kenya Transport Sector Support Project, Kenya National Highways Authority. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Dr. Daniel Tuitoek, a member of the Mediation Committee on the Early Childhood Development Education Bill. The Honorable Daniel Tuitoek. No, you are just running around, running about. You have a card?
Thank you, Speaker. Member Mediation Committee. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Thursday, February 18, 2021. A report of the Mediation Committee on the Early Childhood Education Bill, Senate Bill number 26 of 2018. Thank you, Speaker.
Very well. The Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Trade, Industry and Cooperatives, Honorable Haji.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Thursday, February 18, 2021. Report of the Departmental Committee on Trade, Industry and Cooperatives on consideration of the Economic Partnership Agreement, EPA, between the Republic of Kenya, a member of the East African Community of the one part, and the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland of the other part. Thank you.
Next order. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Honorable Tuitoek.
Notice of motion, Member Mediation Committee. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion. That pursuant to the provision of Article 113(2) of the Constitution and Standing Order 150, this House adopts the report of the Mediation Committee on the Early Childhood Education Bill, Senate Bill number 26 of 2018, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, February 18, 2021, and approves the mediated version of the Early Childhood Education Bill, Senate Bill number 26 of 2018. Thank you.
Very well. Honorable Haji Aden.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion, that this House adopts the report of the Departmental Committee on Trade, Industry and Cooperatives on its consideration of the Economic Partnership Agreement, EPA, between the Republic of Kenya, a member of the East African Community of the one part, and the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland of the other part, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, February 18, 2021, and pursuant to the provisions of Section 8(4) of the Treaty Making and Ratification Act 2012, approves the Economic Partnership Agreement, EPA, between the Republic of Kenya, a member of the East African Community of the one part, and the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland of the other part. Many thanks indeed, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. Next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
First question, member for Tharaka, Honorable Gitonga Murugara. Honorable Murugara, you forgot your card. I forgot. You proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sorry, I had just forgotten my card in my pocket. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Allow me kindly to ask question number 027 of 2021 to the Cabinet Secretary for Energy. Number 1, could the Cabinet Secretary provide the electrification plan for all public primary and secondary schools in the Raqqa constituency and the status of electricity connectivity to the said institutions? Number 2, could the Cabinet Secretary explain why the solar PV systems installed to provide power to 125 schools in the Raqqa constituency, that is to say 38, 35, 24, 19 and 9 schools in Marimanti, Gatunga, Mukothima, Chakariga and Kodi wards, respectively, are either dysfunctional or obsolete, thus compromising among other programs, the digital learning program. Number 3, what measures has the ministry put in place to ensure that the dysfunctional or obsolete solar PV systems installed in these schools are phased out or repaired, or that the schools are connected to electricity through the national grid? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
To be replied before the Departmental Committee on Energy. Next question by the member for Yatta, the Honorable Charles Kilonzo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to ask question number 028 of 2021 to the Cabinet Secretary for Lands and Fiscal Planning, Roman 1. When will the Gong Land Registry be reopened following its closure on November 20th, 2020? And what measures has the ministry put in place to ensure that this and all other land registries across the country are reopened, noting the inconveniences caused to various stakeholders? Roman 2, what measures has the ministry put in place to ensure that services offered in the land registries are not interrupted during times of renovations, refurbishment, and upgrading? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Question to referred to the Departmental Committee on Lands to be replied to. Next question by the member for Kaiti, the Honorable Joshua Kimilu. Member for Kaiti. Member for Kaiti, the Honorable Joshua Kimilu. Very well. Next, the member, question by the member for Nakuru Town East, Honorable Gekaria.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to rise to ask question number 032 of 2020, directed to the Cabinet Secretary of Education. Why is Egerton University Management continuing to pay the teaching and non-teaching staff half salaries since April 2020, despite a court order directing for full payments and even after receiving full capitation from the government? And question number 2, what arrangements are in place to ensure that the staff are paid their full salary without further delay? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Question to be replied before the Departmental Committee on Education and Research. Last question by the member for Kirinyaga Central, the Honorable John Munene Wambugu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Allow me to ask question number 34 of 2021 to the Cabinet Secretary for Education. 1, could the Cabinet Secretary explain why Mr. Victor Nyaga Gadidi of ID number 38143491 and admission number FP 20012 was denied admission to the Kenya Utalii College on 18th January 2021. 2, could the Cabinet Secretary further explain why his slot was allotted to another student despite being able to raise the necessary school fees and making full payment to facilitate admission on 26th January 2021? 3, could the Cabinet Secretary state when the above-named student is expected to report for admission to the said college? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
A question to be replied before the Departmental Committee on Education and Research. I'm just wondering, Honorable Wambugu,
Yes, sir.
does it fall within the Ministry of Tourism or Education? Have you checked? This Utalii College? So I'm asking just so that you don't get some half-baked answer.
I think it should be tourism.
The-
It is tourism, yes.
Because there's possibility that if it goes to the Ministry of Education,
Yes.
they will have to send it to the Ministry of Tourism, I think, possibly. Do you mind if we can send the question to the Ministry of Tourism?
I think I stand guided. I think let it go to the Minister of Tourism.
Yeah, because it is some form of course, it is training, tertiary,
Yes.
but I believe this institution falls under tourism still.
I think so.
Unless I don't know, maybe the Honorable
Because
Omboko Milemba
when
could-
I sent the question, I was
the
guided
Honorable
by
Omboko
the
Milemba
table
could
office.
help us.
It's not under education. Let it go to tourism.
Tourism.
Specific.
Thank you, thank you.
Very well. I think the clerk is directed to make the necessary correction so that the question is referred to tourism so that you can get an appropriate answer. Because I can see again, you say the child has even paid the school fees and yet not admitted. To avoid further delays, I think it should go to tourism. So the committee will deal with it. Very well. So the clerk's office is accordingly directed. For the second time, the member for Kaiti, the Honorable Joshua Kimilu. Honorable members, you don't have to come and stand here. If you are not there, we always give you a second chance. So if you come, the only thing you are required to do is just to apologize for your lateness. The Honorable Joshua Kimilu.
Could the Cabinet Secretary provide a comprehensive report on the case of his death?
No,
and
the one is cause, not case.
Could the Cabinet Secretary provide a comprehensive report on the case of his death, cause of his death, and further explain why the family was not allowed to participate during the postmortem of the body?
Well, we are not indicated to which Cabinet Secretary the question is directed, but I will assume it is directed to the Cabinet Secretary for Defense. And therefore, the question is referred to the Departmental Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations to be replied to from there. Go to statements. First statement sought by the member for Funyula, Dr. Oudo.
Honorable Speaker, allow me to get a hard copy. I don't have it now. Just like a few minutes, if you don't mind.
If it isn't, if you're not, you can do it even next week.
No, it is very important. If you allow me just a minute, I think I can get a copy.
Yeah, because the reason I'm sure is what I'm sure of is that I have approved all the requests.
Okay, just give me a
including
second.
yours.
Thank you.
The next request is by the member for Muhaya, the Honorable Omboko Milemba.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Is that fast?
What is? Yeah, the other one, perhaps.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. A request for a statement on the Kenya Defence Forces recruitment process in the Muhaya sub-county. Honorable Speaker, pass one to standing order for...
Sorry, it looks like it has gone off. Yeah, proceed.
A request for statement on the Kenya Defence Forces recruitment process in the Muhaya sub-county. Honorable Speaker, pass one to standing order 44-2C. I seek to request a statement from the Chairperson Departmental Committee on Defence and Foreign Relations regarding the ongoing Kenya Defence Forces, KDF, recruitment process in the Muhaya sub-county. Honorable Speaker, the recently advertised and now ongoing recruitment of youths into the KDF raised a lot of expectation among the youths due to the high unemployment rate and the benefits that accrue to the individual, family, and community in general when one joins this esteemed force. Honorable Speaker, during the recruitment process, more than 3,000 youths turned up for the exercise. However, only 2 of the more than 3,000 were taken. This left questions on the number of slots allocated for each sub-county in Kenya. Honorable Speaker, it is of great concern that the number of slots per sub-county is so low, especially when compared with the ratio of population of youth. It is against this background that I seek a statement from the Chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations on the following. Number 1, what were the number of slots allocated to a Muhaya sub-county considering the high population of youths in the sub-county? 2, could the Chairperson provide a list of distribution of recruitment slots into KDF for all sub-counties and counties that depicts equity and fairness? Number 3, what was the other criterion used by the KDF to determine one has the requisite qualification for intake into KDF apart from ability to run? And number 4, lastly, could the Chairperson explain what measures were taken to ensure that gender parity and that all wards in the sub-county were considered during the KDF recruitment exercise carried out in the Muhaya sub-county and Kenya as a whole? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Chair, Defense and Foreign Relations. Not a while ago, I saw the Honorable Kato hovering around here. But you know, we've said time and again, if the chair is not present, at least the vice chair should be present. Who's the vice chair of that committee? Well, let the request be forwarded through the office of the leader majority. But I think it's important that the question be responded to urgently. So, leader majority, you take up the matter. We'll go back for convenience to the member for Funyula. I want to.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I have retrieved the 2 statements, requests for statements. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 44-2C, I wish to request for a statement from the Chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing regarding the status of Nangina Airstrip in Funyula constituency, Busia County. Honorable Speaker, the Nangina Airstrip was established in the 1950s and was majorly used for medical evacuations during the colonial days and early years of independence. The airstrip was last used in 1974. Honorable Speaker, on 28th June 2020, the government made a pronouncement through the Cabinet Secretary for Devolution and Assaults that Kenya shillings 50 million was set aside for the rehabilitation of the airstrip and that the works will commence immediately. Honorable Speaker, it's against this background I seek a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing on the following. 1, in view of the pronouncement stated above, could the chairperson explain when are the proposed works on the airstrip expected to commence, and what is the nature of the works that have been proposed to be undertaken? And number 2, could the chairperson provide information whether the relevant ministry has undertaken the requisite environmental and social impact assessment? I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The second one.
Second, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 44.2c, I wish to request for a statement from the chairperson on the Departmental Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations regarding the status of Muluanda border point in Funyula constituency, Busia County. Honorable Speaker, in March 2009, a government delegation led by the then head of state that included other leaders visited Muluanda, a small shopping center along the Kenya-Uganda border in Funyula constituency, Busia County, and the head of state instructed relevant authorities to open up Muluanda as a border point to decongest the Busia and Malaba border points. He further directed the 5-kilometer Nangina Junction Muluanda Road be tarmacked and building of a bridge to ease transportation between the two countries. Honorable Speaker, on the other hand, the government of the Republic of Uganda sent a delegation that comprised of the district resident commissioner and a principal judge. Honorable Speaker, it's against this background that I seek a statement from the chairperson for the Department Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations on the following. 1, could the chairperson explain the challenges that have led to the delay in actualizing the head of state directive to establish a border point at Muluanda? Number 2, could the chairperson undertake to request the State Department of Transport and Infrastructure if there are any plans to tarmac the 5-kilometer Nangina Junction Muluanda Road and build a bridge over Riwosuo to ease transportation between Kenya and Uganda? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The first question is to the chair of the Departmental Committee on Transport, the Honorable Kosing. Absent, not desiring to be present, or having completed his county's consideration of the BBI Constitutional Amendment Bill. Is he still beaten there? The vice chair is the member for Kiambu, the Honorable Amushomba. Also dealing with, I think, maybe pursuing the same agenda. Leader of Majority, take up the two. The second one is again to the Chair of Defense and Foreign Relations on the opening of the border post at the point stated by the member. Muluanda, is it? Yes. Leader of Majority to take up both of them and communicate. Next request is by the nominated member, Wilson Sosion.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Pursuant to Standing Order number 44.2c, I wish to request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Labor and Social Welfare regarding gazetting the agency fee with respect to collective bargaining agreements negotiated and concluded by 40 trade unions in the country during the period 2017-2021 collective bargaining period. Honorable Speaker, Section 49 of the Labor Relations Act 2007 provides for the right to agency fee to be paid to a trade union by an employer after effecting deductions from an employee's salary. A trade union that has concluded collective agreement registered by the industrial court and certificate issued with an employer, group of employers, or an employer's organization
setting terms and conditions of service for all unionizable employees covered by the agreement, may request the minister responsible for labor to issue an order requiring any employer bound by the collective agreement to deduct an agency fee from the wages of each unionizable employee covered by the collective agreement who is not a member of the trade union. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I seek a statement from the chairperson of Departmental Committee on Labor and Social Welfare on the following. One, can the chair explain why the Cabinet Secretary for Labor and Social Protection has violated Section 49 of the Labor Relations Act 2007 by not gazetting agency fees that was with respect to the CBS that were negotiated and concluded in the collective bargaining agreements by a number of unions, that is NAT, WASU, Kenya National Union of Nurses, Dock Workers Union, among other 40 trade unions in the country. Two, can the chair give reasons as to why the Cabinet Secretary for Labor and Social Protection has ignored applications by unions for the agency fee, despite the said unions fulfilling the requirements as set out in the subsections 2A, B, C, and D of Section 49 of the Labor Relations Act? Three, why has the Cabinet Secretary for Labor and Social Protection failed to implement Section 49 of the Labor Relations Act 2007, while at the same time the employers continue to offload membership from union registers or withdrawing checkoff, making it extremely difficult for unions to organize and conduct their programs as provided for in Article 41 of the Constitution, despite some unions obtaining court orders compelling the Cabinet Secretary to award the agency fee, which he has ignored. Four, can the chair explain why the Cabinet Secretary for Labor and Social Protection is undermining the role of trade unions in negotiations of labor matters for their members, violating labor laws, the Constitution, and ILO Convention 98 on the freedom and rights of trade unions? And finally, Mr. Speaker, can the chair state when the agency fee will be gazetted duly for all the unions that have negotiated and concluded collective bargaining agreements to ensure industrial peace in the sector? I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Labor, the Honorable Peter Mwadhi. I think even him, he has finished his parliamentary business for the week. The members need to know that the House sits on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so that on Thursdays we want to see members here. But I'm just thinking around Honorable Sosion, and because I've seen several of you sometimes burning some papers, some of you come to me telling me that I was forced to sign some paper, thinking that I was applying for a loan, even if you, I mean, how do you imagine you apply for a loan, signing a document that is presented to you by somebody else? People don't apply for loans that way. You are the one who applies for the loan. But I'm just wondering, Honorable Sosion, you said that the Cabinet Secretary is violating Section 49 of the Labor Relations Act and also the Constitution. You know, I think as a House, one of our members, sometimes you need to show your teeth, not by opening your mouth, but you need to show your teeth. I'm sure you understand what I'm saying. If you are clear in your mind that somebody who is supposed to obey certain laws is violating them, show your teeth and bring appropriate remedial proposals here in the House. This time, not hiding the reason why you want people to sign, explaining that this person has violated this and this and this, so that the matter can be discussed here. That particular person will be called before the House to come and explain. Of course, you'll be given a chance to make a defense, so that people begin to understand that the laws are not there for purposes to soothe their egos. But let's say we'll take the state request through the office of the leader of majority, so that we'll then hear what the response is given. Honorable Sosion. Leader majority take up the matter. The next request is by the member for Muhoroni, the Honorable James Oyo.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 44-2C, I wish to request for a statement from the Chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Agriculture and Livestock regarding the status of sugar importation from Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa, COMESA region. Honorable Speaker, the sugar industry supports 400,000 farmers and employs over 8 million Kenyans directly and indirectly, most of them from my constituency. Presently, the industry in Kenya is currently experiencing deficits, making it difficult to satisfy the domestic market and thus the need to import more sugar to address the local demand. The COMESA Council of Ministers, during its 41st meeting held on 26 November 2020, granted a 2-year extension of the sugar safeguard beginning March 2021 to February 2023. The existing safeguard lapses in February 2021. Honorable Speaker, as per the above safeguard, the deficit is to be met by importing sugar from COMESA countries, which attract zero duty. Meanwhile, sugar from the rest of the world is levied at 100% duty. The COMESA safeguard is to protect the local market from cheap imports. In addition, the extension is to enable the country to privatize the sugar industry to give it a competitive edge. This move was preceded by a ban on importation of brown sugar into the country in July 2020 by the Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I seek a statement from the Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Agriculture and Livestock on the following. Number one, what are the modalities used in calculating the projected sugar deficit in the country, and what are the procedures used in verification of certificate of origin of imported sugar? This factor is being abused so much by the licensing entity. Number two, what are requirements for issuing sugar import license and permits by the ministry? Number three, why has the Kenya Revenue Authority given duty exemption to 10 companies, namely MS Big 2 Commodities Limited, Commodix Limited, Fixed Commodities, Niate Commodities, iFox Commodities, Pacefield Commodities, Option 2 Limited, Pilamart Limited, Niang Commodities, and PriceMart Limited, despite the quota for the year 2020 having been exhausted? Number four, when did the Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture lift the ban on importation of brown sugar, and what may have informed the reversal of the decision? This is because he personally levied the ban in July 2020, and so far we have not gotten official communication that has been lifted. But the action of allowing the 10 companies and others to import sugar as if they're coming from COMESA is like showing he has already reversed his ban, which he gave in July 2020. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The chair for agriculture. With the chairperson or chairman or chairwoman, the Committee on Agriculture, who is that? Oh, the Honorable Tiren. Oh, that one must have finished his work for the week, isn't it? No. We have had difficulties with the other. Is there a vice chair? Who is his vice chair? Some other unknown person, is it? Who? The member for Laikipia, who has again also finished her weekly chores. Leader majority. That means you see, if those people are not there, we must this request must be channeled through the office of the leader majority, because he's one person I'm sure who is always here in the house. Are performing. Honorable Wangwe, going to give the statement. Yes, proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. It's just a request through you, Honorable Speaker, that as you send the Honorable Majority Leader to communicate to Honorable Tiren, kindly let him inform that during that day, when the CS will be coming, we really expect a lot of supplementary questions to that effect. Whereas Honorable Koyo is speaking, he is speaking on behalf of many of us. It's important that the chair makes it open, makes it informed to all of us when the CS is coming, so that we can be able to discuss during the committee, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
I'm just wondering, is it not possible that this information can be displayed? Previously, that we used to display this information so that this thing of saying that the chair inform members, the chair may not meet all the members. How is it the clerk can make this be displayed so that any member and every member desirous of going to hear what it is the cabinet secretary is saying is able to. But remember, this is a request for a statement, and it's not a question. So the cabinet secretary may not appear before the committee unless otherwise directed. But the Honorable Koyo has sought a statement. He has not asked a question. So the statement, the response from the minister will be read by the chairperson. Honorable Haji, I hope you are not taking over as
No.
you are not going back to your former position as the chair of that committee.
No, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Not to appear like I'm standing in for Honorable Tiren, but just an observation that the line between agriculture and trade is very thin. And the only difference here is when we are talking about issues to do with farmers, then that now crosses over to agriculture. But Honorable Koyo's statement is heavy on matters trade, and I wish to seek your guidance whether indeed Committee on Trade should not be involved in prosecuting this matter.
Honorable Haji, so that you don't spend too much time on flogging a dead horse. The Honorable Koyo has made a choice. He has listed many issues, some of which could touch on trade, some could touch on actually finance. So, but he has made a choice that he wants the statement to come from the Ministry of Agriculture. So your involvement is ruled out by him. Honorable Owen Bayer.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I would like to ask you, the Committee on Agriculture, I don't know whether they have too much work. You remember my question on the cash nut. It's now a year. It's coming to March. I asked it sometimes in March. I always talk to the chair about this.
Honorable Bayer,
there hasn't been any
again, so that we don't speak to ourselves.
Yes.
Why don't we wait for the leader of majority to bring into this chamber that chairman so that he can respond to your request? Because now even if you raise it and he's not here.
Guidance and guidance, sir.
I think we need to inform the Honorable Tiren that that committee is usually a busy committee. It's not one that we expect the chairman to be flip-flopping. Honorable Kisang, I can see your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I just wanted to tell you that every Thursday, most Thursdays, it looks like when people are retreating, like tomorrow we have a brief budget conference in Mombasa, and most of them have already gone to Mombasa, maybe because of the ticket. So it's also important maybe you communicate that if those retreats are there, the chairs should stay in the house and leave late at night or the following day.
You see, it has become it seems like it's the practice, Honorable Kisang. You are a chair of the ICT committee, but you are here. Honorable Haji is here. But there are those chairs who actually want to deliberately avoid being in the house. So they want to be booked in the morning flight on Thursday. But the retreat is actually tomorrow. So they could take the evening flight. That's what the responsibility is all about. That's why, but now you find a chair here, there's a retreat You'll be briefed about budget on Friday and Saturday, but the chair wants to take the morning flight, 10 o'clock, off to the coast. I mean, surely. Because there's no justification for why in a chair now, who knows that there will be issues, there could always be issues touching on their dockets being raised here. It's just a matter of people taking responsibility and taking their work seriously. If you as a chair you are not able to know, then you get your vice chair to be in the house. There's another request, the final one from the member from Vita. He too is a chair of a committee and he's still in the house.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'll not comment on what you had just talked about because these are my colleagues, but I think we should raise it in the liaison committee on these matters. Back to the statement. Bwana Speaker, kupitia kwa kanuni za kudumu 44(2) cha, naomba jawabu kupitia kwa mwenyekiti wa mazingira kuhusiana na mjengo unaoendelea sehemu ya Forodhani Old Town na majengo ya magorofa yanayokusudiwa katika eneo la Buxton, yote yakiwa katika eneo la Mvita. Bwana Spika, kanuni ya 12 katika sheria za NEMA ratiba ya 3 katika kipengele cha 5 inakubali ripoti ya athari ya mazingira kwa jambo lolote linaloathiri mazingira na binadamu. Na kwa sasa Bwana Spika, mipangilio hii inaathiri wakaazi wa maeneo hayo ikiwemo ugurushaji na majumba jirani kuathirika. Kupitia hayo, ningeomba Bwana Spika masala matatu. Kwanza, ripoti hii ya NEMA ilifanywa kweli katika sehemu hizi? Na pili, wakazi walijulishwa wakati NEMA ilipokuwa inafanya ripoti hii na ni lini? Maana wakazi wenyewe hawakuhusishwa katika eneo la Old Town wala Buxton. Na tatu, Bwana Spika, wizara itachukua hatua gani kwa wale maafisa husika ambao hawakufuata sheria kutoka shirika la NEMA? Asante sana Bwana Spika.
Chair, Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources, the Honorable Kareke Mbioki. Vice Chair, is it Sophia Abdi? Leader Majority, I think you'll have to call all these chairmen and deal with them because I do appreciate maybe some of the statement requests could take some time, but I know there's a request which was made by the Honorable Mboko Milemba, which I thought would require an urgent reply. Leader Majority, I think you are the next on the Thursday statement.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, before I read my statement, I also want to inform the House that the chair of National Security had given undertaking to give a date on when the Cabinet Secretary would be available to prosecute the issue raised by Honorable Kamket. And he has not gotten a date yet. I think the whole government has been in State House the whole of today. So he's already discussed that with Honorable Kamket and wishes to, just for the record, that he will, at the earliest opportunity, once he has got a date, he will then inform the House. But he's holed up in with his committee on the matters of the budget. Otherwise, he would have been here, as he's always here. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order number 44-2A, I rise to give the following statement on behalf of the House Business Committee, which met on Tuesday, February 16, 2021, to prioritize business for consideration. Honorable Speaker, on Tuesday next week, at the afternoon sittings, we shall consider the following bills in the committee of the whole House. Just in case members have forgotten, in the Committee of the Whole House, that's why we'll be looking at the third reading. We have not done it in a while. We have the Refugees Bill of 2019, the Health Amendment Bill, that's a private member's bill, of 2019, and the Care and Protection of Older Members of Society Bill. Again, this is Senate Bill number 17 of 2018. Honorable Speaker, we will also continue with the second reading on the following bills at both the afternoon and evening sittings, if we do not conclude them today. And this is the Kenya National Library Service Bill of 2020, which starts today. Number 2, the Kenya National Blood Transfusion Service Bill of 2020. The County Governments Amendment Bill, which is Senate Bill number 13 of 2018. The National Cohesion and Peace Building Bill, Senate Bill number 35 of 2018. The Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill, number 3 Bill of 2019. The County Statutory Instruments, Senate Bill number 21 of 2018. The Impeachment Procedure Bill, Senate number 15 of 2018. And lastly, the County Law Compliance and Endorsement Bill, Senate Bill number 25 of 2018. Now, Speaker, the House Business Committee also prioritized consideration of several statutory instruments from the Committee on Directed Legislation, and the House is also expected to consider the 2021 budget policy statement next week. I therefore urge the departmental committees and the Budget and Appropriations Committee to urgently conclude their work in this regard to enable the House to finalize the matter within the stipulated timelines. Madam Speaker, the House Business Committee will reconvene on Tuesday, February 23rd, 2021 at 11 a.m. to schedule business for the coming week. I now wish to lay the statement on the table of the House. Thank you.
Honorable Tuwei, what's your intervention?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the Leader of Majority for the business of the House next week, and I request him to take note of a matter of interest to the House, and to request for a statement from him regarding the appointment of Ambassador Mwenda Mwenzi to Seoul, South Korea. Mr. Speaker, the House will recall that it resolved on June 6, 2019, that the appointment of Ms. Mwenda as an ambassador to Seoul, South Korea, be subjected to her and renouncing her United States of America citizenship in line with Article 80C of the Constitution and Section 31, as read together with Section 52 of the Leadership and Integrity Act, number 19 of 2012. Mr. Speaker, realizing that the Committee of Implementation, in a report tabled on November 27, 2019, highlighted its finding on this matter and established the following among other facts: that 1, or A, Ms. Mwenda Mwenzi filed a petition before the Constitutional and Human Rights Court, petition number 367 of 2019, on 17 September 2019, contesting the National Assembly recommendation that she renounces her American citizenship before taking up office in South Korea. The court ruled the petition number 367 of 2019 as being premature, as the approval process was not complete, and further held that the conditional approval was in accordance with the law. And C, the court further held that the petition of an ambassador was not a state officer but a public office, and that the provision of a Section 31 and 52 of the Leadership and Integrity Act 2012, which requires public officers to renounce their citizenship prior to taking office in light of requirement of Article 78(2) of the Constitution, also applied to public officers. Consequently, Mr. Speaker, the Committee of Implementation recommended the following in its finding: A, that the House
do reject the nomination of Ms. Mwenda Mwinzi for appointment as an ambassador to Seoul, South Korea, for the reason that nominee has failed to fulfill the conditions set for approval by the House in its resolution of 6 June 2019, and B, that the appointing authority considers initiating the process of nomination of an ambassador to Seoul, South Korea, pursuant to Article 132(2) of the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, it is reported that the distinguished ambassador has since been appointed and has reported to the station in Seoul, South Korea, as Kenyan ambassador on 17th February. Mr. Speaker, I therefore wish to request the leader of majority party to, among other things, 1, confirm whether the appointment and reporting of the ambassador to Seoul is true. 2, confirm if the distinguished lady renounced her American citizenship, and that confirm whether the report of the Committee of Implementation will be slotted in the order paper by the House Business Committee for debate in the House. May I also seek guidance, Mr. Speaker, on whether, in the event that the resolution of this House was not implemented, could this House take a stand, including but not limiting to declining to allocate funds to Kenyan Embassy in Seoul, South Korea in the year 2021-2022? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, that is the leader of majority, is directed to the leader of majority. Leader majority, there are some issues we're supposed to confirm, those 3.
Honorable Speaker, I don't know where the member has gotten the information, so we'll proceed together, then we'll seek to confirm. But in terms of undertakings for the House Business Committee, I can't commit the House Business Committee because I don't speak. The chair is actually the speaker, and we will meet. I said we'll meet on Tuesday to prioritize business, so we can take note of some of those issues raised. But I don't know why the member is not wanting to have this matter prosecuted through the relevant committee, which is the Defense and Foreign Relations, which would actually be more relevant. But be that as it may, I'll look at how to best assist, and depending on the circumstances, I can't give a timeline right now. There are so many issues. There's a matter to come before the House of Implementation. There's an investigation in Korea in terms of whether the person is actually in Korea. So there are some of those things that we will need, and I want to be given adequate time to come out with a comprehensive answer.
Including, of course, but not limited to even actually referring this request to the relevant committee.
Exactly. Yeah.
The chair who is absent. But with regard to the report, the House Business Committee will look at what it is that the report of the committee was about. Honorable Otiende Amolo, I can see your hand up. Honorable Otiende Amolo, there's something wrong with this.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think the statement sought and the clarifications and the indication by the leader of majority is in order. However, given the nature of the issue that is raised, I think perhaps it requires clearer directions from you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is an issue that borders on what we would call contempt of parliament. And an issue of contempt of parliament ought to take priority over other issues. Mr. Speaker, if we were in court, we would have said that we take judicial notice of what has been raised. But even though we are not in court, we are legislators and we are alive to what goes on. The reports out there suggest exactly what the honorable member had asked. And given that this is a matter on which you had given directions, Mr. Speaker, it is a matter on which there's a misconception by the public. And the public has been led to believe that the court overturned the decision of this House, which is not true. What is true is that the court made certain observations, but did not make a finding. And those observations were actually tabled in this House. Members debated them, and on its merit decided not to approve. Mr. Speaker, where the law says that a particular approval can only take effect with approval of the House, there can be no other way around it. If the House rejects, there is no other legal process by which one can end up being appointed. I think this is a very fundamental issue because it will affect all other approvals that come to this House. If one can be appointed despite rejection by the House, then it means there is no point in considering that rejection. And Mr. Speaker, therefore, beseech you that it is important to prioritize this issue and we determine it conclusively. Otherwise, all our time spent on approvals will be wasted. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, the only thing that we can do is to bring the matter, because it's a matter for the House, really. It's a matter for the House. So we just have, if it is the desire of the House, for instance, to express itself on this issue, we can have the matter listed for debate on Tuesday afternoon. Because, you know, fortunately, I personally am aware of the findings of the Departmental Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations and the resolution of the House. I've also gone through the report of the Committee on Implementation, which report has not been debated. That report has not been debated. So perhaps that's what we need to do is get that report brought to the floor of the House. The House makes a decision one way or that. That's not the debate now before the motion. Indeed, the member has just sought a statement from the leader of majority. So if we you know, I've always told you this House always has to follow its own rules. We can't begin a debate on a matter that is not before the House. It's a statement. There's no motion. And I agree with the Honorable Otiende Amolo that, yes, indeed, there's a matter that the House should debate and make a decision one way or other. Because there's a report that is pending. And the report did not die with the last session. It did not. The report is still active. No, now you see, I don't want to allow members to begin commenting because many of you are not able to distinguish between procedural matters and substance. The Honorable Otiende Amolo has addressed the issue of procedure. Yes. If those of you who are trying to raise your hand up, you know, when I was young, there was a small animal which, you know, we used to, as young people, we used to think it's for the front legs are always very short. It's called a ground squirrel. So when it is on the ground and it's supposed to rise, you can't quite tell whether it is. So I can see many of you doing something like that. Your hands are not quite up, so you appear like that small animal. And but with respect, I really want, if you're going to address the issue of procedure, so let's not go to the substance. Let's deal with the substance when you are debating the report. Unless you really feel that as a matter of procedure, there's something else that you'd want to add to what the Honorable Otiende Amolo has said. I wouldn't want us to go to the substance because let's have an open mind when we are discussing the report. And I don't want anybody to be prejudiced by anything that may be said prematurely. Member for Nambale, you still have a procedural issue?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, as the Speaker of the House, you never speak in vain. In fact, you don't even have opinions in vain. You seem always to be fully considered all the time. And the extent that you allowed the matter to be raised before the House, Mr. Speaker, sir, indicates that it was in your opinion that, in fact, this is a matter that's worthy of mention. I think that this House has a major responsibility to protect the privileges and rights of Parliament under the law, under the Constitution, and under the precedents that have been set before. So I just do hope that the matter will get due consideration next week, as you have just ruled, so that we can substantively deal with it. It's not a matter that should be left by any form and shape to slide under the carpet.
You see, honourable members, I did communicate on the 9th when we resumed to the entire House so that members who had questions that they wish to revive, chairs of committees whose reports are not being dealt with to revive by giving fresh notices, and several have done so. At exactly 3:42 p.m., the chair of the Committee on Implementation walked into the chamber. The Honorable Olekenta, you have not given notice. You have not given notice, fresh notice of motion for adoption of that report. So would you be kind enough to give fresh notice of that motion, because it's a matter of urgency that I think the House should express itself and do away with it, because indeed I want to agree with the Honorable Tiede Amolo. It's a grave matter.
Yes.
That the House should express itself one way or the other.
Honorable Speaker, in fact, it has come to my notice, and I think the notice of many Kenyans, that the lady by the name of Mwinzi.
No, not about, I don't want us to discuss the substance.
Yes.
Your report,
yes,
you need to give fresh notice.
Yes.
And I'm going to allow you to retreat, go and do a proper, just a notice, and I will allow you at whatever time to give notice today, so that that matter can be discussed by the House on Tuesday afternoon. So please, that's all we want to do because I'm aware that you tried very hard to get the report prioritized, but for some reason it could not be prioritized.
That I'll do, sir. I'll do that immediately. In fact, I'm going out of here to do this. To do that.
Can I find out from you, Honorable Olekenta?
Yes.
Would you be available for the 7 o'clock sitting?
I will be.
To give notice?
Yes, I will be available, sir.
Yeah?
Yes, Honorable Speaker, I will be available.
So go and have a draft notice of motion?
Yes.
So that the House will then be moving procedurally.
Most obliged, sir.
Very well.
Okay.
Honorable Soti, I can see your hand up. Is it the procedure?
Speaker, I wanted to raise a procedural issue, but my chairman came in to say that indeed the motion was slotted for debate, but you remember the chair requested for its withdrawal because the motion was fundamentally different from the notice of motion. So which was a procedural issue which, through your direction, I think it should not recur again.
Yes, Honorable Olekenta will ensure that that the notice will be in accordance with the report, the intended motion. So the motion reflects the desires and the resolution of the committee. Very well. Next order.
Order number 8, procedural motion, extension of the period for consideration of a statutory instrument.
The member for Tiati. The Vice Chair, Honorable Jagagua. This is a matter that belongs to the Committee on Delegated Legislation. You don't appear to have a card also. You can place it on intervention.
Mr. Speaker, okay.
Very well.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I believe that matter has since been overtaken by events, that motion, because the committee at its sitting yesterday was able to deal with that matter substantively. So I would pray that we step down the notice of motion. Thank you.
Since we step down, the indication at hand was that your desire would be to withdraw it under standing order number 51.
Much obliged, Mr. Speaker.
So
I now wish to withdraw it.
Yeah, understanding order number 51.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Because notice of it had been given.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very well. So this business, the motion appearing as order number 8 has been withdrawn at the request of the committee. Understanding order number 51. Next order.
Order number 9, motion, approval of session of paper number 1 of 2020 on the wildlife policy. Question to be put.
Honour members, debate on this motion was concluded, and what remained was the question to be put, which I hereby do. That this House adopts the report of the Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources on session of paper number 1 of 2020 on the wildlife policy, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, December 3rd, 2020, and further approves session of paper number 1 of 2020. Will as many as that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as second opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Order number 10, the Kenya National Library Service Bill, National Assembly Bill number 5 of 2020, second reading.
Leader of Majority.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the Kenya National Library Service Bill of 2020 be now read a second time. Honorable Speaker, by your introduction, this is a government-sponsored bill which was published on 20th of March last year, 2020, and came under my predecessor's signature. And it was read for the first time on 14th of April in this House, and thereafter was committed to the Departmental Committee on Sports, Culture, and Tourism for consideration pursuant to Standing Order number 127. Mr. Speaker, this bill, its main objective is to give effect to Article 11 of our Constitution, which provides that the state shall promote all forms of national and cultural expression through literature, the arts, traditional celebrations, science, communication, information, mass media, publications, libraries, and other cultural heritage. It's a bill that seeks to update and repeal the Kenya National Library Service Bill, Board Act, Cap 225, which was enacted on 1st of April, 1967. So it's really, between 1967 and now, we are still operating on a bill that was enacted those many years ago. In between, the new constitution has come into play, has defined the role of culture, the role of the arts, and the bill has not, the Kenya National Library Service Act has not been updated. This bill is divided into some 40 clauses and 3 schedules. Mr. Speaker, again, with the promulgation of the 2010 Constitution, there has obviously also been a need to align our library services regime to the new constitution. And particularly, members may remember that under the current, the 2010 constitution, the library functions became devolved or split between some being held at the national level and others at the county. And hence, we will need then to update the new institutional structure to accommodate operations at the county and how they get sorted out, and as well as the national. Basically, the bill provides for the establishment of the Kenya National Library Service. The previous bill was just looking at the board, but this one now creates a National Library Service and provides a number of functions for the, which are all listed within the bill. It's a very comprehensive list of functions at clause 5, which go a long way in terms of defining what it can do or what it's seeking. The Parliament empowers it to do through this enactment of this bill. And if I highlight some of them, I think the fundamental one is to equip, develop, and manage and maintain the Kenya National Library Service. Members may notice this Kenya National Library Service has got a new headquarters up the hill next to about the Ministry of Transport. You know, there's a corner just before Nairobi Kenyatta National Hospital, opposite the police. It's got a, so that now becomes part of one of the service, one of the responsibilities is to equip that. It's also be empowered to acquire, preserve, and maintain a collection of library resources, including books produced within and outside Kenya and such other material and source of knowledge and necessary for a comprehensive national bibliography. One of the other functions, I'm just picking some of the key ones, there are so many others, is to liaise with other government agencies to ensure compliance by publishers with the Books and Newspapers Act, so that within, it's up to the National Library Service to ensure that compliance and be the central depository of what has been published around Kenya. It also carry out and encourage research in development of libraries and related services, promote reading for knowledge, information, enjoyment through stimulation of public interest in books, and participation in campaigns for the eradication of illiteracy. Honorable Speaker, as you remember, the founding fathers of this country had identified the eradication of poverty, disease, and illiteracy as core values and core pillars for the development of this country. And we are not going to eradicate illiteracy unless we can adopt a reading culture, because it's actually in search of knowledge that people remove the things that hinder them from thinking straight, the things that hinder them from opening up their minds to see the bigger picture. And especially now, with what's happening on the social media, what's happening on TVs, and you find most of our young Kenyans, you hardly see them having any books that they are reading. They are all glued to televisions, to their phones, on social media, and very few would actually be reading any article of academic interest. So the Kenya National Services would then have as one of its functions that promotion of the reading culture. One of the other things that I hope to do is to establish and maintain a national agency for administering international standard numbers for books, serials, music, and others. Every book that you read would have something that's called the ISSN number, which authenticates the book, ensures its original material by the author, and hence has a global reference that people can, as they are quoting that works of art, that works of literature, can quote. And this will be part of the responsibility now by the Kenya National Library Service. It also published the Kenya National Bibliography and Kenya Periodicals Directory, among other things. Further, Honorable Speaker, we also know technology has changed, the manner in which libraries operate, and this bill seeks to also establish a national virtual library service and a national webcast to publish catalogs for all branches so that people can access this information from the comfort of their homes, the comfort of their offices, to be able to see what material is available within the library, where it is, and tap into it, as well as they enrich their academic journeys and research. Mr. Speaker, the Sports, Culture and Tourism Committee did look at this bill, and I wish to commend them for the work they put into it. And they tabled their report on this consideration. And when you look at that report, the committee has indicated they conducted the public participation. It received submissions from the State Department for Culture and Heritage, as well as the Kenya Library and Information Professional Association. Indeed, the committee considered them, made observations, and I'm aware they'll be moving some amendments to the bill at some appropriate time. Honorable Speaker, you know, different people view libraries differently, and one of the acknowledged Norwegian writers, John Byng, who is also a law professor, once said, and I quote, that to ask why we need libraries at all when there's so much information available elsewhere is about as sensible as asking if roadmaps are necessary now that there are so many roads. And that kind of summarizes why we need these libraries, like I said. There's so much information out there, but for us to get the different information from different places, library helps organize the different works by the different people within a certain, that you can find it within a certain section. So all information to do with the history of a certain area, they organize it such that you can access that area, and much like we do now, the browsing electronically, and can look at the different people who have said different things on that area. And it's very clear that by investing in libraries, we'll be on our way to conquering the world, because questions about life's problems would have been answered in the books, and these books would be in our libraries. And for people who have interest in academia, people who have in scholarly works, in research, you'll realize that the more you read, the more you get in love, fall in love with libraries. And when you pass some library somewhere, you want to stop and get in to see, is there some latest works in this area that has come up? There's that constant search for knowledge, and I believe this will be an integral part of this Kenya National Library Service that we'll be doing to ensure that that body of knowledge is made available to Kenyans at all ages. Having libraries is, however, one thing, and I believe that we now need to also have the legal regime that supports that architecture, and that is what basically this bill is hoping to do. Honorable Speaker, I'm excited when you look at the different facilities that the Kenya National Library Service has put across the country. And I believe in about every county there's a library. Like when you go to, I know I passed through there's one huge one for Nairobi in Buruburu. And during the school holidays, if you see the queue for especially the school-going children to join, and on Saturdays, to go to the library, you get encouraged that at least they are going searching for knowledge instead of just sitting at home watching television and becoming, being moved into some harmful tendencies that can only be harmful to the mind. There's huge, I've seen library in Muranga, I've seen others in Nyeri, I've seen others, and I also want to commend members of this House who have also put some money through their CDF before the function was taken over to the counties to actually build these libraries and help in the equipment so that people can have a place where they can seek knowledge. And because we need to encourage that reading culture, like I said, to divert our energy for our young ones from television, social media, that could be harmful to the mind. Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, I wish to assure honourable members that the proposals in this bill comply fully with the provisions of the Constitution and standing orders, and the bill will immensely facilitate realization of provision of Article 11 of our Constitution as regards the preservation and maintenance of library resources. Honourable Speaker, this obviously is a bill that will, like I did mention, it involves counties. So I am hopeful that by the time we finish with it, members of Senate will also see the need to enact this bill fast enough so that we can provide those facilities across the entire country. And I'll be appealing to the Senate to give it the seriousness it deserves. It's also a money bill, because obviously we are talking of resourcing. And I'm glad that the Budget Committee has prioritized it and said, yes, it's worth investing in our children's future in terms of facilities. So, Honourable Speaker, I really don't want to get into a lot of debate. It's a very self-explanatory bill. Like I said, there's already some framework. There are libraries, people are reading, and hence, what we really want is to have this bill passed so that we can have the proper grounding for Kenya National Library Service and update the institutional structure that was created in 1967, which is basically almost 5 decades ago. And so much has changed since then. I also want to ask members to read through it and prefer any amendment they would need to bring. Honourable Speaker, with those remarks, I beg to move and to ask the Honourable Chair of Sports. I believe he is around. Yeah? Yes, the Honourable Chair for Sports, or Vice Chair for the Committee on Sports, the Honourable Professor Almain, who is a distinguished scholar in his own way and loves libraries to second.
Honourable Correio Almain.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, I beg to support the Kenya National Library Service Bill 2020. Honourable Speaker, as a leader of majority has clearly indicated, this bill seeks to repeal the Kenya National Library Service Board Act, Cap 225, Honourable Speaker, which has been around for the last 54 years. So it's actually a very, very old bill. This bill is long overdue, Honourable Speaker, and also it takes into consideration that it needs to be aligned to our Constitution 2010. Honourable Speaker, the bill provides for the establishment of the Kenya National Library Service to repeal or to replace the Kenya National Library Service Board. This bill takes into consideration, Honourable Speaker, the changes that have been occurred in the library sector, devolution, and other constitutional dictates. Honourable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 1273 and Article 198 of the Constitution, the committee placed an advertisement in the newspaper on 30th April 2020. The committee received memoranda from two entities, being the State Department for Culture and Heritage and the Kenya Library and Information Professional Association. Mr. Speaker, all their proposals were deliberated on and considered by the committee. This is contained in the committee report, which was tabled in this House, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the committee did have a number of observations during the public participation and engagements. Mr. Speaker, as the majority leader has indicated, the committee will be making quite a number of proposed amendments to the bill. And it is our wish that when it comes, this again will take into consideration. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased that this bill is before this House for the second reading, as it is long overdue. I wish, therefore, Mr. Speaker, to truly thank the members of the committee for the job well done. Mr. Speaker, I also want to urge the honorable members of this House to truly participate and support this bill. Honorable Speaker, thank you, and I beg to second.
I propose the question, which is that the National Library Service Bill, National Assembly Bill number 5 of 2020, be now read a second time. Honourable members, as I indicated earlier, following the request by the member for Mosob, I would interrupt the proceedings to allow the chairman of the Committee on Implementation to give notice of motion. Honorable Olekenta.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion. That taking into consideration the findings of the Select Committee on Implementation on its report on examination of the implementation status of the resolution of the House of 6 June 2019 regarding the conditional approval of Ms. Mwende Mwinzi for appointment as Ambassador of Kenya to Seoul, South Korea, laid on the table of the House on November 27, 2019, which takes cognizance of the determination of the High Court of Kenya of 14th November 2019, Nairobi Constitutional Petition number 367 of 2019, particularly paragraphs 104 and 105, that while Ms. Mwende Mwinzi cannot be coerced to renounce her citizenship of the United States of America, USA, a person holding dual citizenship ought not be an ambassador unless a person renounces the citizenship of the foreign state, as dual citizenship may jeopardize the national interests of the Republic of Kenya against the interests of the foreign state. This House rejects the appointment of Ms. Mwende Mwinzi as an ambassador. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. But that's a notice of motion. If it's a notice of motion, yes.
Mr. Speaker, I am very happy. In fact, why I missed the earlier session, and I am not privy to what the House discussed. But, Mr. Speaker, from where you sit, because a resolution of this House has not been complied with by the executive. Speaker, will I be in order that as we wait to debate that report of the implementation committee, maybe order the Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations to summon the CS for Foreign Affairs and ask on the status. Is it true what we are seeing in the media that Mrs. Mwende Mwinzi, not Mwizi, Mwinzi is an ambassador, or those are just stories? Can the minister maybe appear, Mr. Speaker, through your direction?
No, that may not happen at this stage, but the House is at liberty on Tuesday when debating to even add further recommendations to the report of the Committee on Implementation. We'll be looking at what the committee has recommended so that the other issues, there are some other issues to raised by the member for Mosob, which will obviously require the Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations to deal with the matter. Yeah. Member for Makueni, go back to the motion.
And thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute on this very, very important matter. Mr. Speaker, it's clear that this bill is fulfilling the dream of the 2010 Constitution. And previously, Mr. Speaker, there were library services, but at times there will be questions as to why they are not distributed all over the country, and especially now that we have a new constitution, this bill was very, very important so that we can have a fair distribution of this important resource in all the country. Mr. Speaker, it's good to note that due to modern developments of communication, a lot of libraries are now online, and there is also virtual libraries, Mr. Speaker, and a lot of material can be accessed online. But at the same time, that does not mean publishers will no longer publish books, or as soon as they publish books, they put them online. Hard copies of books will forever be there. It's going to be a permanent thing. And one of the things said by the Leader of Majority while moving this very, very important bill, Mr. Speaker, is that, libraries, and especially they are put very well across the country, will enhance and will keep the youth busy in different parts of the country, and especially if this is fairly and evenly distributed. And I believe this will be the duty of the board, which will be appointed under this very, very important law. Mr. Speaker, if libraries are fairly distributed, and although a lot of material has gone online, it will still take time, Mr. Speaker, for everybody in the country to be able to communicate or to access books online, and they can be able to read them online, because it's also got an expense, and that may not be met by the very, very common Kenyan. And therefore, for the benefit of common Kenyan and for the benefit of a well-read nation, Mr. Speaker, if these libraries are all over the country, then it means even children who cannot afford school books, or where school books are inefficient, it means school children can access books in the libraries, the public libraries in different parts. As you heard, Mr. Speaker, quite a number of members have either fundraised and started a library, or through CDF, libraries have been established in different places. And for those who love reading, and there are quite a number, there are many children in the rural areas that wish to access a library, probably do their homework there, get guided. And at times, there are people who destroy materials in libraries, or unable to get a very rare book, end up pulling one or two sides. The proposed section 36, Mr. Speaker, has given penalties, very heavy fines for somebody who willfully destroys the library material or obstructs library workers. And when this is properly done, Mr. Speaker, it will also be a source of environment, of employment of very many Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, we have a whole department in Moi University which teaches information science, which largely deals with publication and information dispensing through libraries, and they are actually graduate librarians, and librarians, Mr. Speaker, are all over the world. In fact, it's one of the biggest, one of the treasured stations in many, many parts of the world, and sometimes even go with the historical places where you store historical information. And for those who seek for knowledge, and especially to masters or PhD level or professors, these libraries will be very useful. Now that also universities are getting distributed across the country. Universities invest heavily on libraries. Schools invest heavily on libraries, and it's a very, very expensive affair. And for that reason, Mr. Speaker, it is important to have a law and a board which regulates on how this matter is going to be handled. They have to be premised in a ministry, and therefore there will be a budget which will come to this House, Mr. Speaker, to make sure that we budget for this and make sure that we distribute the funding is distributed evenly across the country, so that a lot of schools which are coming up, day schools, which we are building with the CDF, when they are studying ordinarily, library is not a priority. But if you have a library in a nearby market or near some of these schools, students could be accessing these books. It's also a good thing for retired people who can still read, you know, at an old age. And our good senator, the late Yusuf Haji, used to read very well without specs, even at an age of 86. So we have very many Kenyans who could keep themselves busy after retirement or when they are not very busy at old age. And by reading, they could even, you know, add materials or research. Research is one of the very, very important instrument of development in a country, and most universities now are bent to research. So even individual Kenyans can conduct research on a matter of agriculture or a matter of industrialization. They will have sufficient knowledge on how to handle small businesses, SMEs, through library without necessarily going to a school for training. And therefore, it's very useful when we, as a country, we promote a reading culture. It keeps a lot of people away from mischief, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, this is very, very important step the country has taken towards making sure that there is a library every part of the country, and that there is a law which directs and guides how we are going to establish the Kenya National Library Service, which already exists, has been existing on an old law. This law is going to be repealed, and now will have complied with the new constitution, and among others, many, many other laws which are incidental into this. And we'll be able to synchronize. And I believe, Mr. Speaker, third reading, we are going to come up with amendments which will make this legislation even much better and clear out, you know, some of the issues which are not clear in this particular law, and make sure that it's a big, big benefit to Kenya. And this is one of the biggest gains of the 2010 Constitution, of which now there's an effort to amend it. But it's a very big step that, Mr. Speaker, we are able to give Kenyans one of the things which will really change the lives of many people. I remember when we were in school, sometimes you come to the library in town. Sometimes you may not find some books even at the university library, University of Nairobi, and you'll end up finding them at the library services, the libraries in the city. And you will see the traffic in these libraries. You see the order, the silence, the service there, the librarians who work there. Even us here in Parliament, Mr. Speaker, we have a library, which once in a while we access when researching materials. And we are specific here in the material found in our library, like some of the contributions in the colonial parliament, the independence parliament, the great speeches by some of the great legislators like Shukuku. So a library will always be useful. But one of the things which I think is not well covered here, and we should look at it, is the virtual library and the expense involved in the virtual library. And by installing that, Mr. Speaker, then a lot of young people who have now read information technology will highly be employed by these library services, and they'll be kept busy. We have a lot of people now who are very good in but as ICT, and even in this house, we have ICT gurus, ICT experts. And I believe a lot of young people who are on this particular field will now get an opportunity to work, and Mr. Speaker, will be able to employ many more Kenyans. So I beg to support, and I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Professor Odur.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the outset, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to say as a member of the committee that this indeed is a bill that is timely and one that is going to make a big contribution. Mr. Speaker, as we look at the Kenyan populace, starting with the older generation to the younger generation, we realize that not only do we have the challenge of reading that we talk about as a reading culture, but Mr. Speaker, we realize that we as a country continue to indicate that we would like to reclaim some of the lost values, and in particular to see ways by which we can have intergenerational conversation and mentorship. One of the key significant achievements, Mr. Speaker, of the bill is that we not only will equip, acquire and maintain resources that will be available all over the country from the library services, but indeed through reading, Mr. Speaker, we will have a very wide range of information for mentorship. It is said, Mr. Speaker, that someone who reads is never alone, and indeed, as a number of times, when we seek to see how we can engage our children, how we can mentor them, how we can shape them, we find that for a variety of reasons, even parents do not necessarily communicate as effectively with their children. And in the same way, Mr. Speaker, that the children, particularly those who are at an age where they need the greatest kind of direction in the teenage and young adulthood, do not have that same opportunity. Therefore, as we look at this, Mr. Speaker, we see that not only are we ensuring that we update and indeed ensure that we are moving from what we had as far back as 1957, Mr. Speaker, but that we now have a way where we are ensuring that the library service will be one that is technologically savvy, because it will indeed be in keeping and in tandem with the world as it is today. We would be in a position to ensure that we have a wide variety of resources. There will be those resources that can be available to those who might not necessarily have the kind of digital coverage that we have in urban centers, because we will have, in addition to information that is available on software, information that we have on the hard copy. And so, Mr. Speaker, as we look at this bill, it is indeed an important advancement and recognition and a key tool that in this House we, as we pass the bill, are giving to the country. I therefore, Mr. Speaker, would like to support this bill and indeed to say that the committee, in its public participation, not only with the ministry responsible, but with experts and other key stakeholders, confirmed that this is timely, this is appropriate, and is therefore a key achievement and a necessary addition indeed to the kind of services that we have. With this, Honorable Speaker, I support. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
For Nabaholo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to support this bill. Honorable Speaker, as it is written in the same bill, Honorable Speaker, it's a bill that's amending a very old existing bill of 1967. And Honorable Speaker, when you look at what used to happen in 1967, you cannot really put 1 + 1 to it. Instead, Honorable Speaker, issues and the way of life has really improved and changed. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, I look at the way the committee has done and say thanks to the committee that you've done a good job, and you are now going to use this bill, Honorable Speaker, to take the country to another step higher. Honorable Speaker, a few of the issues that are mentioned in this bill that make me appreciate the bill include, Honorable Speaker, that it's taking cognizant not only library referring to the reading materials, Honorable Speaker, but it's also encompassing so many issues of reference, as it is in article in clause 3, Honorable Speaker. It proposes that there will be a preservation of national documentary heritage and to distinguish the function of the Kenya National Library Service from other libraries, Honorable Speaker. As a distinction, Honorable Speaker, and in the preserve of national documentary heritage, it takes a wide scope of undertaking of the heritage of Kenya. And Honorable Speaker, many a times we just look at library, meaning a place of storage of documents or books. In this case, Honorable Speaker, the bill goes beyond the books. Instead, it looks at our heritage in totality, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker is also going to develop, manage, and maintain the Kenya National Library through this act. In as much as, Honorable Speaker, we have like the newly refurbished library in Upper Hill, Nairobi, is also going to look at the bigger view of the libraries, Honorable Speaker. As you can notice, it is not just the issue of bookwork, we also have the issues of electronic books. But through this bill, Honorable Speaker, we are going to look at the electronic part of it, the hard copy part of it, and Honorable Speaker, by equipping the library, is going to change the way of our youth. Honorable Speaker, our youth need to have the culture of reading. Many times, Honorable Speaker, you pass by a stage, you pass by the road, and find our youth just standing or doing an idle-minded kind of activity, Honorable Speaker. But with this kind of equipping the libraries through this bill that it will now manage, have a board of directors, have everyone put into place, Honorable Speaker, is going to be a good thing. Honorable Speaker, also this bill shall enable to acquire, preserve, and maintain a collection of library resources, including books produced within and outside Kenya and other materials. Honorable Speaker, this bill shall also link our library to external libraries, Honorable Speaker. It will enable us now to have a linkage on how we can now be able to link up to external users, and also external publishers will be reached through. Honorable Speaker, the bill also, one other items that enable me to be attracted to the bill is that it will establish and maintain as a library the National Agency for Administering International Standard Numbers for books, serials, music, and others. As I said earlier, it's not just the issue of the reading material, but it will be extended, Honorable Speaker. Many a times you might have an art, be it music, be it the art of marshalling or whatever, that you might not have a way of preserving it. But through this bill, Honorable Speaker, this bill is now recognizing fully the storage of the art in terms of music, in terms of books, and in terms of ideas, Honorable Speaker. In clause 6, Honorable Speaker, this bill has established the whole board. How is it going to be administered? It's going to be a structured organization, Honorable Speaker, with a board of directors, the board of the National Library, which will be the board of the National Library, having a chair, and various PSs, Honorable Speaker. However, I look at the way it has recommended the various other PSs or principal secretaries from the state organizations as taking the majority of the board. I would have loved, Honorable Speaker, during the committee of the whole House, allowed to look at why should we have all these PSs from the state departments who could otherwise have been maybe represented by two of them. We all lump them into one. Instead of that, we can bring on board other actors, Honorable Speaker, who might add value in terms of supporting the organization to move forward, rather than having our own civil servants being full in the board and they cannot really bring additional ideas. Honorable Speaker, as I thank the board, which is established under Clause 6, we also have the way it's going to be run, who are the persons to be put in. It has really been recognized, and I thank the committee for really giving the qualifications of the board in Clause 7, so that we don't just have to pick anybody. Instead, there is a criteria of who is to be in the board, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, down to Clause 26, the bill also provides the operations of the Kenya National Library Service, which shall be in accordance with the standards that shall be set out in the third schedule, Honorable Speaker. Next to it, there's a third schedule, which will now display, or rather which displays on how the bill is being done. According to me, Honorable Speaker, with the way the bill has been itemized, the way the bill has been scheduled, the way the bill has been put, it really allows the operationalization and improves the nature in which our library services shall be run in this country. Honorable Speaker, in final, I am really pulled to clause 29, which also allows us, or gives us, what is it that's going to be kept into this library? As in the bill provides that the Kenya National Library Services shall maintain records of the following, Honorable Speaker: all documents, whether in soft copy or in hard copy or any other format, so that, Honorable Speaker, you don't go to the National Library and find what is not supposed to be there. Kenya National Library Service, Honorable Speaker, cannot now store sugar the way there is some other go down, Honorable Speaker, somewhere, which was meant to store timber, and it was found storing sugar somewhere when we were doing our field service, Honorable Speaker. Therefore, this definition, Honorable Speaker, it really makes me to be sure that when you go to Kenya National Library, you will either get the hard copy or the soft copy. Honorable Speaker, it is also defining that all persons and institutions registered as members of the library. Honorable Speaker, this calls for registration. It is good to be known. Where do you reference? Who are you? Are you a scholar, or what kind of a person are you? Should you be doing a particular course, Honorable Speaker, you can at least have a pool of professionals whom you can associate with. If you want an architecture, Honorable Speaker, you can easily say, this is a pool of architectures, and so this is going to be available, and you can easily access. It will make our students, Honorable Speaker, at least to know, when I'm going to this library, I'm going to meet this in this company for ease of their discussion. Honorable Speaker, finally, it's also telling us such other particulars the board considers necessary or desirable to be recorded. Honorable Speaker, we are not just tying the board that it will do what has been listed, but also in their own wisdom, Honorable Speaker, the bill is giving them latitude to be able to work on their own and improve how they want the library to take place, to run. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, with that flexibility, it definitely supports that this is a national body, and it's a going concern, and so whatever decisions to be made shall be good for the people and for this country. Honorable Speaker, the way the bill has been lined up, I know finally is being considered not being a money bill, because it's going to incur costs, but also being responsive that the bill shall also affect the counties. Therefore, with that, Honorable Speaker, as it goes to the Senate, we hope that the Senate will also approve it, so that our country gets a new law, a law of the 21st century, which can now live today and see our generations move forward days to come. With those many remarks, Honorable Speaker, I support.
Let's have the Honorable Kevin Wanyonyi, member for Kwanza.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to contribute to this very, very important bill. Madam Speaker, I think on a very onset, I want to say that this has come at a very early time. We have a lot of problems around. First and foremost, as a member of Parliament, I must admit that when you go to a school, secondary schools, whatever, or college, they'll ask you money for something else, but not for the building of the library. And therefore, I want to say that we should actually try to change this culture. First and foremost, we have to equip libraries to be able to have the old books, which, as you know, and I can tell you that this particular bill will be able to help us acquire some of the very old books, and I think there's going to be money spent on the same, to be able to equip our youth. Because, as you know, you look at our youth, what they're spending money on, and that's these games and what have you. Nothing that is good for them, nothing is good to be able to develop their intellectual capabilities. And therefore, I want to say that by reviving on this particular bill, I've not gone over the old act, but it'd be able to, first and foremost, there'll be an interest in acquiring the books that are valuable for the future of our children. And two, eradication of illiteracy, because you know, you talk to one of these boys, I'm saying, because I'm a parent like you know, you ask him and talk about about knowledge. I mean, it's just more or less bullshit. I mean, there's nothing. There's nothing that you can be able to take home. Oh, that boy is intelligent or that girl is intelligent because of the kind of activities they are involved in. And therefore, this, I think, will be able to, as moved by the leader of the House of Business today, it will increase reading interest. It will actually increase the reading, which I think is not there. And therefore, in those days, I know when I was doing my Senate 3, 4, 5, we had libraries around the area, the vicinity. You could go there and borrow a book, whichever type of the book you want, and then be able to sit down and do some homework. There are no TVs. But now, these days, a child from school comes and just glues himself or herself on the TV and cannot be able to know, and some of them cannot even read a newspaper, can't read and say, hey, what is on the headline? And he just looks at the pictures. So that the libraries think will be able to encourage and eradicate the literacy and encourage the reading and the culture of the youth to change from where it is today. And therefore, I think it's important that we be able to do that. The other thing that I want to do is that maybe, and I hope that that's going to be in the Act, we should be able to have the mobile libraries. I used to see vehicles moving from one center to the other, and it's like a Friday or Saturday afternoon or morning. They'll park in a place, put some tents, and you can go there and borrow the book or whatever, books, and do the reading. So we have to encourage this, particularly once you pass this, the third reading, be able to have some money put aside to have mobile libraries that can move around in the constituencies or whatever, or a county, to be able to see that people get interested. Oh, what is happening here? And that becomes a curiosity, and people will be able to cultivate that kind of interest and can do the reading. And therefore, I think it's also, and I think I'm going to be the first person to do it. I want to spend some little money to buy a mobile library and get some books that are relevant. You can consult teachers and other people that are of value to be able to give us the books so that the vehicle can go around as it used to be those days. And I can tell you this, I can tell the House, I saw mobile libraries those days going around. And you go there and they sit there and you borrow, read a book, and you know, that kind of interest to arouse the youth, other than sitting and playing some funny games in the TVs, on the mobiles, what have you. It does not really help our children. And therefore, maybe the CDF should also come in and at one stage be able to buy some mobile libraries to be able to assist us. Let's invest that so that it can be able to change the culture of reading. Because today, I'm sure, your child, my child, they're not interested in reading. And that be able to change that kind of culture for prosperity. Lastly and not least, I want also to say, I think the borrowing of the books, which I think was properly presented by the leader, let's have this country get as many books as, maybe from Europe or as long as are English books, to be able to have those books around for children, to be able to have some interest in the past books. Because past books, like, I know they're very, very interesting. I read some of them, and I'm afraid some of them are torn by the children, but are good. I repair them, and you come to my house, apart from getting whatever soda, you'll be able to see some of those old books, and they are very, very valuable. And therefore, I think I want to support this bill, and hope and look forward to us doing something else to change the culture of our people for the future prosperity of this country. I support the bill.
The Honorable Aden Duale.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is a bill that has my signature. Unfortunately, when I was signing, I was the leader of majority. But now I'm the member for Garissa Township, so I am a bit conflicted. The member for Honorable KJ is saying I'm a backbench. I love being at the backbench, Honorable KJ. This bill, Madam Speaker, ideally is supposed to make sure that Article 11 of the Constitution is actualized. That is the whole purpose of this bill. And repeal the old Kenya Library Service Board Act, I think of, is it 255, Cap 225, I'm sorry. And actualize Article 11 of the Constitution, which provides, and this is a catching statement, it's the most important statement in Article 11, that the state shall promote all forms of national and cultural expressions, either through literature, through arts, through traditional celebrations, through science, through communication, through information, through the mass media, through publication, through libraries, and above all, through cultural heritage. So this bill is basically doing that. Number two, and more fundamentally, Madam Speaker, with the promulgation of the 2010 Constitution, there has been a need to align this sector called library services to the Constitution, particularly on the role of national and county government. And if you read the fourth schedule of the Constitution, in fact, libraries are functions of county governments. And having said that, an amendment must be introduced by the committee. And I don't know whether the chair is, if they're not here, then they should be whipped. You should whip them. They should bring an amendment to Section 6 of this bill. And in the formation of that board, the Kenya National Library Service Board of Directors, the county government must be represented. If they're not be represented, then this piece of legislation will be unconstitutional. Library is a function of the county governments. Madam Speaker, the other two issues I want to raise is that days are gone. You know, days are gone. Libraries these days really serve maybe in the rural areas, in the poor constituencies. But during our days, people used to go to the libraries. You know, the Nairobi University Gandhi Library, you know. Even if you're not a student of the University of Nairobi, you could go and read. So libraries are key in universities, in schools, in communities. But these days with the technology, you can read a book. You can get information from your smartphone. But what is more important today, Madam Speaker, is that there should be a culture of reading. And why do I say so? You know, when I left the office of the Leader of Majority, I had free time. So apart from reading as obligated by my religion, the Holy Quran, once in a while, on a daily basis, after prayers, I had free time if I'm not going to my constituency. So I've started reading books. And it is very interesting. The moment you adopt the culture of reading, you will find reading books one after the other. And Madam Speaker, let me even say, since I left, there are two of the many books I've read, there are two books that are very interesting. One is by Hillary Clinton, the presidential candidate in, I think, 2016. And you know, when she lost, she wrote a book, What Happened? The book is called What Happened? And I want to urge other presidential candidates, when they lose the elections, they write a book, What Happened? Why they rigged. So it's good to read Hillary Clinton's book, on what happened after she lost. And she'll explain to you, and you'll get convinced why she lost. The other book, which I've just finished last evening, is a book by the former national security advisor to our friend, former President Trump, John Bolton. The book is called The Room Where It Happened. And I'm on that route. Madam Speaker, I am also writing my memo. I won't call it The Room Where It Happened, but I'm going to say more about the rooms where it happened that brought Jubilee where it is today. So please, next year, inshallah, around June, July, please, if you'll be around, attend the launch of my book. So it will be similar. It will be called The Room Where It Will Happen. It might not be that title. So what am I saying? So the culture of reading is important. People don't read. Who is shouting and think this is not the August House? Madam Speaker, you need to protect me. Because the other day, there was a guy with a gun here. And now that I'm not the leader of majority, I'm very vulnerable. So, Madam Speaker, so the most important thing in this bill, we must bring the element of the county government. Two, and finally, Madam Speaker, there are religious libraries. Because Kenya is a religious country. There are Islamic libraries, there are Christian libraries. So as we make laws for the establishment of a modern piece of legislation for the establishment of libraries, in libraries we must find sections that deal with Islamic literature, Islamic histories, Christian, and the history of Christianity and other religions. So that as we read the worldly books, we inculcate a culture of religiosity in our children. We must bring our children in a culture where they believe in the existence of the Almighty God. They must believe that they must be good Christians and good Muslims. So as much as we put a section for business, a section for management, a section for schools, primary school, a section for university, we must create sections that deal with religious artifacts and religious information and books. And Madam Speaker, finally, when I was in the 10th Parliament, Honorable Kioni will agree with me, and next to it was a library. So you could walk out, do a small research, and come and contribute. But now we have the tablets here, where we can just by a touch of a button get information. You can get the Constitution. You can get all principal acts. But Mr. Speaker, historically, the Library of Parliament should not be in Continental. The Library of Parliament should be next to the chamber. Yeah, it should be next to the chamber, so that you can get out and even read. For example, like the newspapers, you can't get them here. So if you want to refer to a newspaper or get an information, the library, I think Parliament must be, the National Assembly must be configured in such a way that the library must not be very far, either near room 7, is in Continental House, Madam Speaker, and I have seen it in the House of Commons, in all other parliaments. Libraries are not very far from the chamber. So, Madam Speaker, I think this is a small bill, it's a very important bill, actualizing Article 11 of the Constitution, and I want to urge members, please read. And finally, you must read. There's a book called, Madam Speaker, if you allow me 1 minute. There's a book called, very important book called, and it will help you. It's called it's written by an Italian writer in 1892, and it's called, Madam Speaker, I can't remember, so let me remember if you give another.
So, have you remembered? Yes. Okay, 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, let me say it another day because Honorable Kioni is teasing me. and I don't want to spoil my
Okay,
day.
Honorable Duale, and you know, we've had a lot of prescriptions from you of books, and I'll be looking forward to read about the many rooms. The many rooms.
Madam Speaker, the book is called The Laws of Human Stupidity. It's called The Laws of Human Stupidity. And Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, the only thing, among the many things it talks about is that in the environment where you live, in the office, for example, there are too many stupid people, including your secretary, your driver, even in your family, can be your wife, your children, who will bring you down if you're not careful.
We'll take note of your prescriptions, Honorable Duale. Let's have the member for Funyula, Honorable Oundo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I also join my colleagues in supporting the introduction of this bill in the House. Honorable Speaker, before I came to the August House, I was a lecturer for many years at the Day University of Nairobi, of course, nowhere else. And Honorable Speaker, one of the things that amazed me is that you would find students going all the way to fourth year, but sadly to speak, they can hardly read, they can hardly comprehend and communicate in English. Honorable Speaker, in my current role as a Member of Parliament, I have gone to very many primary schools, I have gone to very many secondary schools in my constituency, but sadly to speak, many of the students are unable to communicate clearly and coherently. This shows clearly, Honorable Speaker, that the reading culture in this country has completely been extinguished or vanished from our midst. And this is a serious and a dangerous trend. Honorable Speaker, I interact with very many members in this House. I interact with very many people, very members from the Secretary of the Clerk's office. But some of the reports that we produce, Honorable Speaker, clearly shows lack of depth, lack of reading ability. Honorable Speaker, we do believe and trust that this bill should have sincerely addressed itself on the diminishing reading culture. Honorable Speaker, one of the things that we used to do in the early days was to spare time to read. When I was in primary school and secondary school, I think I read all the novels that were available during that time. At the moment, it is a mess that 99% of the time of our young people, both boys and girls, are spent on social media, spent on Twitter, spent on WhatsApp, spent on Facebook, and spent on other things. Many of them are unable to even spell a word without having to use the dictionary or spell check on the computer or the spell check on the phone. Essentially, we do believe time is nigh for us to change the trend. Others will have leaders in this country who are unable to read and write, so to speak. Honorable Speaker, I have had a chance to look at the National Library Service Bill of 2020, and I want to make a few comments. Number one, as my colleagues also have said, is actualization of Article 11, subsection 2, on the issue of culture of of our Constitution of Kenya. Therefore, it ought to be a repository of all cultural artifacts, our culture, and everything that is about Kenya. We must also try to draw a line between the WI services and the National Archives system that we have, so that we are very clear what we relate to. Honorable Speaker, looking at the bill, there are quite a number of issues that we must address. First of all, we have so many libraries in this country, both private, public, and semi-public. Honorable Speaker, one of the areas where radicalization happens, one of the places where you can get wrong material, either detrimental to our children, detrimental to the state security, and related facts, could be in the libraries. I would therefore move an amendment at the committee stage, committee of the whole house stage, to make it as one of the functions of the library services to license all libraries in this country, so that we have a clear list of database of all the libraries and the kind of materials that are stored there. This will help remove the element of plagiarism that seems to be gaining trend in this country. That will also ensure that we keep track on the kind of material that we are looking at. Honorable Speaker, the fourth schedule, part 2, line 4, devolves library services to the counties. And I join my colleagues to say that, clause 6, which states the membership of the service needs to be changed to ensure that the county governments are represented in one way or another. Anything else short of that will make the bill unconstitutional and therefore not meeting the requirements of the Constitution. Honorable Speaker, when we go to Article Clause 24 and 25, gives a list, the process of acquiring materials, the process of meeting materials. It's not very clear. How does the service acquire that material? Is it by force? Is it by coercion? Or is it by voluntary submission? And if we submit our material, how sure are we they are safe, they will be referenced accordingly, and those kind of things? So therefore, that particular clause, Honorable Speaker, must be redone to ensure that that process is very clear and everybody knows what's the process to be followed. Honorable Speaker, I like clause 35. Many times you feel sad. You go to the library, you pick a book, you find several pages have been plucked out for purposes that some students are lazy or some readers are lazy, they want to go and copy word to word. The penalties that has been imposed here is good, and probably you could consider enhancement of those penalties. Honorable Speaker, as I conclude, it is important that the kind of material available for reading, the kind of material that is available for reading to various levels, age levels, should be clearly demarcated, should be clearly noted. You find many places, you go to the library, and you find children probably access some novels that are beyond their age. So one of the issues that we need to be very clear, and that's why it is important to license libraries. We must demarcate this for adults, this for young people. And as I conclude, Honorable Speaker, it's just a rallying call. Leaders lead by example. Let us be the leaders to lead by example. When you go home, as Honorable Dwala has said, spare time to read. Let you be seen be reading. The children and the people you work with will also take up the good habit of reading to ensure that we get it right. As we stand here in the House, I also request members, let us be factual. Speak or state what you have researched, what you have read. It's very embarrassing at times, a honorable member to come and start here and talk out of depth, talk out of context. When you go outside there, people start wondering, do you belong to the same parliament? Do you guys research and to know exactly what is the position? With those few remarks, I support, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Kipyegon, Ngeno.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for also this opportunity to also contribute towards this particular bill based on the library systems in our country. Madam Speaker, remember our constitution, and Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, can you protect me from senior members here?
Order. Honorable
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The constitution The framers of the Constitution, Madam Speaker, devolved library services to the counties. And at some point, we normally look at it as a very unfortunate situation because the functions which are normally devolved are those functions which are needed majorly by the people around the counties. But Madam Speaker, remember, the functions of the libraries are almost working hand in hand with the functions of the national government, especially the education sector, because libraries were meant to be falling actually under the Ministry of Education, which would have actually helped us to ensure that the libraries work properly. Despite so, Madam Speaker, I would also wish to join my colleagues in stating that we must align it to the Constitution so that it can as well have the same functioning shared by both county and national government. Madam Speaker, I support this particular bill because it seeks to distinguish the management of the existing libraries. It is giving actually the existing libraries and the libraries which maybe needs to be formed the management team that will be looking into what are the needs of those particular libraries. Madam Speaker, remember we have national libraries both in the counties and in the cities, but the problems that we have in the counties, Madam Speaker, is that most of the libraries that we have are not properly equipped, they are not properly funded, and they are not properly managed. I hope this particular library board will ensure that the libraries that are in existence are properly managed and funded so that we can have our learners visit those particular places and find the materials they want. Madam Speaker, I also support on the fact that in most of the counties, like the sub-counties, in most of the counties we have maybe 1 or 2 libraries. We need to create a situation where at least in every sub-county we must have 1 or 2 libraries. Madam Speaker, reason being, we have so many learners, both in our primary and secondary and even at the universities. And most of the students who normally come for vacations would want to have places to go and study, do research, do discussion. Madam Speaker, it's hard because most of these learners cannot borrow books from their universities. They can borrow only 1 or 2 because based on the limits of those particular cards they are normally given. But when they come for long holidays, especially during even the long corona holidays, most of the learners could not find anywhere to get books. Madam Speaker, if we have libraries in our sub-counties, in every sub-county, so they can have even 2, these learners will not be idling in the villages. They will be reading, they will be borrowing books, they will be returning them. And of course, it will be easier for even our libraries to track the borrowers because they will not run away, because the libraries will be close to the villages. Madam Speaker, I also wish to say that I support this particular board because I believe it's going to expand and modernize the existing libraries and the ones which will be formed. Madam Speaker, remember, our learners nowadays have moved, we all have moved from paper to digital. Madam Speaker, learners would also wish to visit these libraries and find books and books and books which are online, and they can as well be reading them online in the libraries using computers and laptops. So, Madam Speaker, this board must ensure that they modernize the existing libraries and even those ones which needs to be built so that they can meet the needs of the learners who are in the villages and who are in those particular areas. Madam Speaker, I also support because I think it will help. The board will also help to look into the preservation of the history or historical heritages and those materials which deal with our cultures. Madam Speaker, remember, there are a few places that if you want to know about the historical cultures and even historical happenings, you only need to go to archives, mostly in the cities. Madam Speaker, we need to devolve even those archives to the libraries so that if you want to access information about your great forefathers, I believe almost all of us in this country have
a background. So at least if you want to access who did this or who founded this or who did that, Madam Speaker, we can only find them in archives which are hard even to come by. If we have them in the local areas, in our sub-counties, in the libraries, Madam Speaker, I think even those new ones who want to write their biographies and many background informations about our local areas, they can have access to the materials and write books which can also be found in these particular libraries. Madam Speaker, lastly, I also wish to support this because I believe the board will come and to promote research, research in most of the, especially even on those, Madam Speaker, you know, that those who still want to study, those who still want to do courses of higher learning, Madam Speaker, there are those who still want to research on maybe for their PhDs and other degrees. Madam Speaker, if we allow them to access materials in these libraries, or we equip these libraries and modernize them and have all that is needed, it will help those of us who could be even may not have the opportunity to be in the cities to access those particular books. We can access them in the libraries. Madam Speaker, I wish to say I support, and I wish to say that this House also must support by not only passing the bill, but by also providing the funds necessary for the equipping and modernizing of these particular libraries. And then we also promote it by being also learners ourselves. You know, people look upon us as leaders. They believe that anybody who comes to this House, Madam Speaker, is somebody who is literate, and not just literate, but somebody who is informed of what is happening in the world. Madam Speaker, it is important that even us, we will be attending those particular libraries and studying and by interacting with people so they can know actually we are also informed and also get ourselves informed. There are those of us who sometimes we rise up in this House and talk over a matter which we do not even understand how it goes. So, Madam Speaker, like my colleagues have said, we also need to have our library within this particular premise so that we can also be doing research on many other issues. With that, Madam Speaker, I support and I thank you.
Honorable Muliungi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to talk on this bill. Madam Speaker, I rise to support the Kenya National Library Services Bill, which intends to amend the original bill of 1967, which has indeed become archaic and outdated. Indeed, Madam Speaker, these amendments are belated, and they should have actually come yesterday, because 1967 is a long time ago, shortly after we gained independence. Madam Speaker, I support this bill because it attempts to introduce technology, move with the times, from the times of 1967 when we were on print media to electronic. We then went to computer, and now we are on mobile phones online. Madam Speaker, the spirit of adopting new technology in this bill is indeed very good, and I commend the authors of this bill for the work they have done to bring these amendments on board. The bill attempts to transit us. Read, you can access books from the comfort of where you are. Madam Speaker, I agree with the Honorable Dr. Undo and the Honorable Nduale that the culture of reading by our young generation and even ourselves has diminished, and therefore the culture of reading make it very easy to read. So, Madam Speaker, the changes, I believe, will improve, the changes introduced by this bill will improve learning by our young generation. And I propose that the relevant departments in government should ensure that they promote, as much as possible, fund libraries to the sub-county levels, and even going forward, even to village levels, and also improve libraries in our schools and even make them virtual, so that even when you are when you have retired to your dormitories, you can actually access a book from the comfort of your bed and revise. So, Madam Speaker, I support. Thank you.
Honorable Waweru Kiari.
Madam Speaker, I really appreciate this opportunity to contribute to the passing of this Act of Parliament that seeks to establish the Kenya National Library Service, and I actually do support. Madam Speaker, as you can see from the interest in the House, you are able to know what this country thinks about libraries. I know there are people who would ask why we would be concerned with libraries in such a time like this. Madam Speaker, there is an intelligent man who once said that if you were to ask why there is a need for libraries at a time like this when the information is available everywhere, it is like asking if there is still a need for a roadmap when the roads have become as many as they have become. Madam Speaker, I do personally believe that there is a place for libraries in this time and age. Madam Speaker, I'm standing to support because I understand that by establishing a new library service, Madam Speaker, we are actually bringing the library services up to date. Madam Speaker, the old Act on libraries is probably 54 years old. There's a lot of progress that has happened since then, and I would believe that there is a lot of changes that have occurred, not only in the library sector, but also occasioned by devolution and other many constitutional changes, Madam Speaker. It is for this reason that I do believe that we are in order to replace the existing board with a service, Madam Speaker, so that we are able to bring this sector to modern times, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this new bill seeks to introduce persons who shall be serving in this library service, Madam Speaker. I do believe that when we get to the third reading, we shall make some necessary changes beyond what the committee has recommended, up to and including streamlining the number of people who shall be appointed to this service so that they're in line with the mwongozo, which guides how we do the governance issues in quasi-government institutions and sagas, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it saddens me to see the state of libraries around this country. And the plight of our libraries did not just become as bad as it is in our time. It is well known to me, Madam Speaker, that at the dying minutes of colonialization, as people realized that we were just about to get independence, some beautiful, up to and including the Macmillan Library, were vandalized by individuals who believed that we should not benefit from the knowledge that has been deposited in libraries like Macmillan. And I know some people who were fleeing because at that time there was what you would call white flight, as they realized that colonialization is actually on its sunset days, who went into these libraries and picked some of the finest books from the libraries, vandalized them, or even stole them so that we, future generations, would not benefit from these, Madam Speaker. So even as this service is being set up, the people who will come to serve in this new service, Madam Speaker, should also oversee the new thuggery that is happening in our libraries, which includes the plucking of pages out of very important books, so that when you go to read a book, you will find that there's important material that is missing in some of these libraries, Madam Speaker. Another issue that I think should be taken care of is innovation, Madam Speaker. Because with innovation and the advancement in technology, we will have to rethink the library. Madam Speaker, it is Sidney Sheldon, who is a writer, who reminds us that the library stores the energy that fuels the imagination. They open up windows to the world and inspire us to explore and achieve and contribute to improving our quality of life, Madam Speaker. To be able to improve the quality of life in this day and age, the library of today will have to be a modern library, Madam Speaker. We have attempted in the Dagoretti South constituency to put up a public library within the Dagoretti South Empowerment Center. And Madam Speaker, as we are doing this, I would imagine that in the third reading of this bill, we shall be able to amend this place where this bill is talking about other libraries to read public libraries, so that a library like the one that we have in the Dagoretti South constituency can be encompassed as one of those that shall be served by this service, Madam Speaker. In innovating, Madam Speaker, such libraries, you realize that we will need to create spaces that are spaces of interaction and knowledge exchange, Madam Speaker. We will need a space that is quiet enough for contemplation. Because when you're in a library, Madam Speaker, you want to absorb the knowledge, but you also want to contemplate on what you're reading. Madam Speaker, these spaces should also be spaces for innovation. And I do believe, Madam Speaker, that we should have a space that is neutral and a trusted space for public use, for older people, for younger people, either gender, so that when you're there, you feel comfortable enough to do the kind of contemplation, study, and pursuit of knowledge that you need to do when you go into such a space. Madam Speaker, in our case, we have attempted to also bring in technology into these public spaces, Madam Speaker, equipping the library at the Dagoretti South Empowerment Center with computers, because we realize that the library of today, Madam Speaker, is not just about books. We need to think about a library as a repository of our culture, Madam Speaker. I remember when I was a member of a troupe called the Ridiculous Trio, I was ably informed that the people who are agents of the Library of Congress actually showed up in this country looking for every single episode of the ridiculous comedy show, so that they can go and store it in the Library of Congress, Madam Speaker, as an audio-visual reference of a time space or a time capsule in the Kenyan history, Madam Speaker. So in the same breath, I do believe that this library service that we are forming will also think of the library not only as a place where we store books, but also as a repository of our culture. Madam Speaker, I say this as a person who came into politics from a platform of the youth movement. And in the youth movement, Madam Speaker, I was able to learn that generation after generation in this country keeps making the same exact mistakes that were made by previous generations, Madam Speaker. There is talk in this country today about a hustler nation, a hustler movement, and more predominantly, these are young people. But I realize, because we are not able to store our culture, able to store our stories, able to store our folktales, the same mistakes that were made by the Mau Mau generation are the same mistakes that were made, Madam Speaker, by the young people who are fighting for the second liberation in this country. The same mistakes that were made by the people fighting for the second liberation are the same mistakes that we were committing when we came into the youth movement and were trying to seek for answers for this country. We want to pray that the latter day hustler nation does not make the same mistakes that we made, that were made by the people fighting for the second. We were not able to store the stories of our country in a meaningful way, Madam Speaker. So I rise to support this new introduction of the Kenya National Library Service, Madam Speaker, noting very well that as we make this library, we will need to make libraries that are meaningful for today. Madam Speaker, I want to conclude by quoting an individual by the name David Lanks. David Lanks is a librarian, Madam Speaker, and David Lanks was once quoted as saying that bad libraries build collections. Good libraries will build services. However, great libraries build communities. Let us build libraries that will build amazing communities for the future of this country. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
You know, Honorable Kiari, I still wonder whether the comedian in you still exists when you mentioned ridiculous. It was a good show then. Let's have the Honorable Luyai Hamisi. Is in the house.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this bill, whose objective is to give effect to the Constitution in order to promote all forms of national and culture expression through literature, the arts, traditions, celebration, science, communication, information, mass media, publication, libraries, and the cultural heritage. Madam Speaker, just like my colleagues have amply argued on this bill, if I give an example of during this time of global pandemic, most of us who didn't have so much to do, we indulge in reading. And one of the, among the many books I came across is Why Nations Fail. And if you look at the expressions in some of these written materials, specifically from this book that I came across, you find exactly the reason why Kenya is where it is. And an example that was given of the South American countries, the countries that are so close to each other, separated by only a fence, so close in terms of cultural and even language, so similar, but yet so far apart in terms of development. It is exactly the problem that the modern leaders are grappling with, that why are nations that have been close to each other, historically, they have been at par in terms of development, economic, GDP, but yet the countries are so wide apart in modern days. If we had a culture of reading in this country, I probably think our leaders could have a different perspective on why they're elected into leadership. We have had, if you look at the leaders in other nations, even in America and Europe, you'll find the leaders leave behind biographies and memos and very important pieces of literature that guides the new generation. But I don't know, is it because we've had a long culture of not, a wrong culture of reading. We've not cultivated the culture of reading from generation to generation until our leaders have also learned to live the same culture to our new generation. That even the four leaders that we've had from the Kenyatta, Kibaki, Moi, they have never left a single piece of literature. I mean, leading a nation for 24 years and there's nothing to write about. Is it that you are doing nothing for those 24 years? So we must cultivate this culture of reading so that our future generation will not suffer the cost that we have suffered as a generation. And this bill is going to ensure that this country is not left behind. And probably, you never know, because most people talked about countries like Singapore, North, South Korea, that were at par with Kenya. And if you look at the reading culture among the nations on earth,
Honorable.
You'll find some of.
Wangwe, is there something out of order?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it's not out of order, but it's a request for information. My colleague did allude that you cannot rule for
Request
24 years.
For information?
Yes, I would want to inform him, Honorable Speaker.
Do you want to be informed, Honorable Amisi?
I don't wish to be informed by a person who has never ruled this country. Probably if those...
Honorable Whip, I'm sorry, if he doesn't want your information, then we can't force
Then,
it.
Madam Speaker, it can be a point of order because after now, I wanted to make it soft for him, but we cannot allow him to misdirect the House, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable
That
Amisi,
indeed,
you can be seated, Honorable Amisi. Let's hear what Honorable.
by giving us false information, Honorable Speaker, that indeed.
You're out of order, Honorable Amisi. Just have a seat. Honorable Wangwe.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. We cannot allow him to give us wrong information on the floor, Honorable Speaker, that indeed a leader ruled for 24 years, which represents Honorable Moi, without writing a book, Honorable Speaker. Yet we are very much aware of the number of books that Moi wrote. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Amisi, kindly be clear, clarify what you're talking about and be factual.
Yeah, I think he must have been looking for something to say today because what I was saying, Madam Speaker, was just an example of so many leaders in this country who have ruled without even mentioning a name, because there are members of parliament who have served even 30 years. So I didn't mean the president or the deputy president. I just said a leader who has served for 24 years. So I don't know why he's quick to jump into defense of a person I have not mentioned, Madam Speaker. And the example I was given is because we must, as a leader, live a culture of reading to the new generation. And this should start with us, the leader. Let us not focus so much on the forefathers, the political dinosaurs that have been there before. Let us focus on us, the new generation, the current leadership. And I urge even our good president, Uhuru Kenyatta, when he leave power, he will lead by example, by leaving a good book that will categorize the experiences as being a leader of this country and what has not worked and what needs to be done to improve our nation. So this is just an example, Madam Speaker, that gives credence to this bill, that it is important to have a management of library services, not just the national services, but across constituencies. In fact, most of us leaders, we go on across constituencies, opening libraries all over, built by CDF, built by the counties, built in the government. But now, how are they equipped? So this one will ensure the management of even libraries that exist in our schools are well equipped, so that we do not just have buildings, opening buildings that are empty, without any literature materials inside them for the students to read. So when we have a proper management of all the library services, including ensuring that at least every constituency across this nation has a library, that one must be mandatory. That is another way of now starting to inculcate the culture of reading to our local students and the people outside there. And Madam Speaker also, I was alluding to the fact that you look at the economic prosperity of nations and you look at the reading culture index, you find a correlation between countries that have been ranked the highest in terms of the reading culture: India, China, Philippines, Thailand, South Korea, Singapore, Philippines, Russia. You find there is a correlation between the economic development of cultures, that the countries that have built the culture of reading versus the countries that do not or have a lower rating of reading culture. And you see African countries are at the bottom. So Kenya could be one of those few countries in Africa that will join South Africa, Egypt in that ranking. And probably that's where our focus as a nation should be to try and put our young people into books, read what has happened. Those who are interested in arts, let them read the arts book. Those interested in politics, there are so many varieties of books, so that it does not just take a global contagion like Corona to put some of us into reading. Let it be a culture that even some of our friends here who are given wheelbarrows, they should instead give a book to those youth so that they are able to know, to read what can work, what can read for them, to be successful. This is what it takes, and probably to improve their imaginations, to improve their power, to improve their talent. And it is a deep source of knowledge to read books from time to time. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Let's have the Honorable Wambugu Munene.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to also say something and support this bill. First, from the onset, I want to say it's a very important bill. It is timely, and it is coming to repeal an archaic piece of legislation, and more so to comply with the 2010 Constitution. Madam Speaker, what really makes me support this bill, and to me, the main thing is to be contained in Section 5E, that the main function of the National Library Service is to encourage or promote the reading culture for knowledge, information, so that public interest can be stimulated and to campaign towards the eradication of illiteracy. Madam Speaker, we all know that knowledge is power. And knowledge comes mostly through reading. And we know that, like our country, why with all our problems, why we attract investors, foreign investors, mostly it's because compared to other countries in Africa, we are well educated. We have a population which is well literate. But you can imagine if all Kenyans are literate and illiteracy is eradicated in Kenya, it will be the best resource for even the growth, because you all know that human resource is the best and most expensive resource to put even to power the country forward. But I have a bit of misgiving, Madam Speaker, when I see the composition of the board in Section 6. You realize that from paragraph A to H, apart from the chairperson and the director general, all the others are principal secretaries, basically the executive. So this composition, I doubt whether it will have the effect intended, because if it is dominated by the executive, without maybe also putting the academia, people in academia, people in the corporate world who are well versed with the matters of library, I think we may need to, at that reading, to change a bit about the composition, so that at least we also it doesn't look like just an executive arm of government controlling the Kenya Library Services. Madam Speaker, but I'm also quite happy with the qualification, which are normally contained from Section 7, I think, all the way to Section 15. Because all these members of the board, the law is very clear that it has said that all of them must at least have a university degree. They must attain at least, apart from other qualification, they must have at least a degree from a recognized university. And more so, about the Director General will be the CEO of this board, the bar has been raised a bit that he has at least a master's degree from a recognized university. This is good because, after all, this is a bill about libraries, and libraries is about reading and about learning. So ordinarily, the people heading that board should be people of high academic qualifications. Madam Speaker, the other interesting and the most important section is Section 35, which through that section, Section 32 of the proposed act. This section has made this board to be absolutely independent in its performance of its function, which now make it that if which bring to the issue that having been given independence, if they fail, they will not be saying there will be there is interference, because the act itself has specifically stated that they will be independent and they should not be subject to any person's direction. However, I have a bit of issue with Section 38. It's a good section because it is going to give the minister, the cabinet secretary, the power to make regulations. However, I've noted that there is no time frame which has been provided. And we have seen sometimes we pass very good acts or bills, and when they are signed, they don't come into operation, or even if they come to operation, it is not effective, and the full benefits are not realized because the minister has slept on his duties and has failed to make regulation in a timely manner. You see sometimes when some act where regulations have not been made for 20 years or 10 years, you have not yet made regulations. So I think it could have been a better way where if we were to provide that, any regulations to be made under that section, maybe within 5 or 10 years. So that at least is a limit, and the full benefits of this bill, or once it becomes an act, that are realized. As I conclude, the reading culture in Kenya, and especially currently, has really gone down. And once this bill, and I believe we'll pass it as members of this House and Senate is going to concur, once this bill become law, it may be important that going all the way to sub-county, we have a library in each sub-county. And why do I say so? It's because it is true you can read from the comfort of your phone, from the comfort of your house, but when you are assembled together in a place where you can exchange knowledge, in a place where also you find other people reading and enjoying books and all that, you also get motivated. And you also know where you can be able to always get the materials you require. And because much as we have some small libraries in the upcountry, and mostly in our primary and secondary schools, you find that what is stocked there, mostly there's only textbooks meant for either primary or secondary schools. But when you don't have a library which stocks all kinds of materials and have all kinds of materials for the community to be able to research or read and advance their knowledge. So, Madam Speaker, I believe once the bill is passed, this August House is going to move with speed, and when we come to the issue of budget, we will rise to the occasion and provide the necessary money for this board, because eventually, without money, well, the service, because without money, we will not go far. And most importantly, the Act has recognized that the main source of funding will be the money appropriated by National Assembly. With those few remarks, I beg support. Thank you.
Honorable Millie Odhiambo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Madam Speaker, at the onset, I want to say that I support the bill. And even as I support the bill, Madam Speaker, I noted that you are challenging my good friend, Honorable KJ, whether he is still a comedian now that he's referred to ridiculous. And Madam Speaker, I think he's still a comedian if he thinks that the hustler nation can take the country anywhere. But having said that, so he's actually true to form. Having said that, Madam Speaker, in relation to the bill itself, I would want to say that I want to agree with the honorable members that as a country we still need libraries, and indeed we must promote a reading culture. In my constituency, Madam Speaker, I have actually started something called Drop Everything and Read, or Dear Suba North, which is to encourage a reading culture, especially amongst girls, given that Homa Bay County is actually leading in early marriages. Madam Speaker, we were meeting earlier together with the Parliamentarians for Global Action, the Kenya chapter, together with Girls Not Brides, and we want to really ensure that we push this agenda, that we enforce a reading culture. Madam Speaker, at one point I visited my constituency, actually before I even came to Parliament, with my mother. And the young girls were shocked that my mother at her age was able to address them in very good English and very good Kiswahili. As we progress, you actually see the reverse happening, that you would expect the younger generation should be doing much better. Instead, we are doing much worse. Now, if you actually see, one of the hallmarks of the Luo nation, Madam Speaker, was that if you gave them a microphone, they would address you in very, very good English. Now, actually, they still do, but it's English that if you connect the dots, sometimes it's impressive, but sometimes you query. And there are many, many people, even especially the younger generation, that will not address you. Not that English is a measure of intelligence, but because it's our medium of instruction, it actually shows that most of us have fallen on the wayside. Madam Speaker, one of the amendments that I'll be bringing, I brought it as an motion in the previous House, but I'll bring it as an amendment to the Education Act, that our medium of instruction must be the same in the whole country. You can't expect to have a medium of instruction for a child in Turkana, and the one in Nairobi in English, and they sit the same national exams in the same language. And you do not also expect our children to have a culture of reading when you teach them different languages at lower levels. But the books that we'll be introducing them to, including the ones that the members are so elaborately saying, are not written in mother tongue. They are written in English. And maybe the worst case is Kiswahili. So we must also equalize education in order for us to further this culture. Having said that, Madam Speaker, I'll be proposing several amendments to this bill. Madam Speaker, if you actually look at definitions, like, for instance, the way we define book, even though we are alluding to the fact that we are trying to digitize, but the definition of book has no inference to the word digitization, so we need to add that. Madam Speaker, if you look at the definition of member, it's confusing because a member refers to the member of the board, but in the body, the member is actually referred to a member of the library. That's actually confusing, so we need to do that. We need to look at that. Madam Speaker, the other issue is we are talking about the National Library within the bill, but also defining the National Library Service as something different from the National Library. We are also confusing terms there, so we need to actually look at definitions and include the definition of National Library on its own without National Library Services. Madam Speaker, the other issue is if you look at the definition of the National Library Service itself is a bit confused. I'll be giving a better definition or proposing a better definition. Madam Speaker, again, when we are referring to newspaper, I know in the normal parlance, since we were brought up, we refer to newspaper because there were papers. But in this age and time, should we still refer to the digitized paper really as newspaper? Maybe there should be a terminology for it. And if the other countries have not, sometimes we need to go ahead of them. And also, if you actually look at the objectives of this bill, it's very limiting. It does not include what all the members are talking about here, which is to encourage a reading culture and all that. It's very limiting in terms of the things that we need to provide this bill for. So I'll be proposing further amendments in relation to that. Madam Speaker, in Clause 5C, I will also be seeking an inclusion of Industrial Property Act so that we also protect intellectual property rights. And Madam Speaker, The other issue is we have also made reference to, in clause 5F, part of the functions of the Kenya National Library Services would be to establish and maintain a national agency. Why do we allow them then to go out and maintain? Why can't, establish? Why can't it be established by this law? So I'll be proposing an amendment so that we also establish it by this. I had proposed maybe an inclusion of the Office of the Attorney General earlier on in clause 6, but I've seen that because they are proposing a lawyer later, I think I could live with that because of also the legal issues that will come up. Madam Speaker, otherwise I also want to laud very much, because I know because of lack of time I might not say everything, but I just want to say that I'm very happy about the provisions that I've seen in the annexures, especially on the Code of Conduct for members of the board and employees of the Kenya National Library Services, and very specifically on the issue of sexual harassment. A lot of institutions are not very bold to talk about issues of sexual harassment. You find sometimes you go and sit in libraries, somebody comes there, you are very busy, you want to study. Some people come there and start rubbing themselves against students who are, their only business is to study. So I think that's a very good thing. Also, the issue of integrity in private affairs, it's a good thing, but in tandem with the Constitution and also the framers of the Constitution, perhaps we should add an F, not to be violent in public or in private, so that it's not just about evading taxes, not neglecting financial obligations, but also that you should not qualify if you are also violent, both in public and in private. Madam Speaker, and also because even though in that schedule, the second schedule, we are making reference to the Public Officers Ethics Act, but because we are also referring to the sexual harassment, maybe we also need to make a reference to the Sexual Offences Act. And otherwise, Madam Speaker, I do support, it is timely, and we need to progress with a changing and moving world. I do support. Thank you.
Honorable Kioni.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for that opportunity to voice my support for this bill, and I want to thank those in the government who helped in coming up with this bill, doing away with the bill that, or the act that has been in operation since 1967. And Madam Speaker, this serves to remind us as members of Parliament that there is a lot that still needs to be done for us to be able to implement, or to think that we have implemented the Constitution of our 2010 in any manner or shape, because this is just one of the examples. We are saying 20 years later, there is still an act of Parliament that was not in tandem with our 20 Constitution. And Madam Speaker, I can tell you as a committee, we are aware of very many such pieces of registration that still exist outside, or perhaps with provisions that do not help because of what we passed or give ourselves as a constitution, as a country, and that is the 2010 Constitution. And I will never stop asking this Parliament, asking the leadership of this Parliament to really think hard as to the role of ensuring that the 2010 Constitution is implemented. We seem to have taken a backseat when we passed the laws or the acts that were provided for under the schedule. Those we needed to do within 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 years. But I want to again say that there is a law that will need to continue being done. And by this will only be possible, again, if we pay attention to the functioning of Kenya Law Reform Commission, which as we speak today is staffed of staff. The AG's office also is really in need of people who can help in drafting and other responsibilities that would help us implement our 2010 Constitution. Madam Speaker, let me also say that future parliaments will need to pay better attention and better support to the committee of CIOC. This has not happened this time loud. It was better than last parliament, but there is still room to improve it. I say that because we have 1 year down the line. I don't think there is much we can do as a committee, but we'll continue perhaps airing its importance. Madam Speaker, let me also say that I think I have gone through a bit of the bill, and as I said, it's a good bill. There are many things like that has been mentioned by my colleagues, including what Honorable Miri Odhiambo have just said. This is in response to Article 11(2), and I want to say that perhaps even on the onset, Madam Speaker, going through it, it will be important for the established Library Service Board to make an approach to CDF so that the CDF can also have it within their program to help in putting up these libraries in the constituency. Because I think CDF is one of the agencies that can help move such noble objectives quickly. Not to say, Madam Speaker, because we have, and I know we have mentioned a couple of things I've mentioned, including the fact that when you have a library in our current day where we have a lot of untruths, people who are blatantly telling things that are not true, they are alluding to issues that do not exist, and since it is now written down on the social media, it is being read by some people like there is some truth in it. A library would help set the record straight because it will be a place where you will have the history, and more importantly, even the truth about what perhaps happened when you were not there. And I can mention to my good friend, member for Dagoretti, that if you go through the history of our library in Parliament, you certainly find something that we did during 10th Parliament that relates to this hustler talk and the dangers and the difficulties that can befall a country if you don't address yourself to what was documented by 10th Parliament, things that we have to be careful about, and they are there for us to read in our parliamentary library. Madam Speaker, I have mentioned that the libraries will help connect communities. And it will help connect communities because it is within the library that you will find documented evidence or records of what community perhaps stands for. As we speak today, we have a lot of mistrust, misconceptions of one community towards another in this country. And I believe if we pay some attention to some history, you will be able to know why a given community may be behaving in a manner that you think is not, or may be annoying to you, but it will help you understand. Let me say something about the Kikuyu culture that I find very interesting, where people who are there long before many of us were born decided that you don't need to document. The cultural behavior, cultural practices, and what needed to be done and what should not be done was to be passed on by way of seeing, by way of hearing, by way of being there. And for the reasons that along the way, a lot of those things have been forgotten or lost, I think that's one of the reasons why we may find, where I come from, some inconsistencies in manner of behavior. But with the library, that will be documented for everybody to read and for everybody to see. Madam Speaker, even as I go through the bill, and I want to echo the sentiments of many who have talked about, we need our parliamentary library near where we are so that you don't need to struggle to look for it. I honestly cannot tell you where our parliamentary library is. I have learned today that it is somewhere in Continental Building. Those other days, it was just outside. As you walk out and walk in, the library was with you. I think it is important that that kind of thing be done. It is good that we are asking for the National Library Services shall be to establish and maintain virtual library services, also village libraries. I see we are talking of regional and county levels. I would rather talk about regional, county levels and constituency levels, because it's at the constituency level that you are getting nearer the people. I think the counties are still very far from where people can freely and without a cost access the library services. So I would ask that perhaps we introduce an amendment to ensure that that is taken to the constituency level. The composition of the board, again, as provided for under Section 6, I want to agree with others. The secretaries are useful because they help in implementing the decisions that have been passed by the board. But there is need for Kenyans with a passion to leading, a passion to this kind of work, to be incorporated in the library so that they become the engine, they become the drive. The permanent secretaries are certainly very busy with the responsibilities that they have in the ministries, and giving them this, again, we may have the National Library services being put at the back seat because it may not rank that high, given our culture and where we are. Section Clause 8, Madam Speaker, it talks of those who are qualified for appointment, and it says it's a member, a person shall not be qualified for appointment as a chairperson or a member if the person is a member of a governing body of a political party. I wonder why. What crime will you have committed being a leader of a political party or being in the governing body of a political party? I think this criminalizing what people do every day, I think is not useful. Again, it also says that if you are a member of parliament or a county assembly, you cannot be a member of the board. The other question I ask, the question is why. I think we need to do amendment to that area also. And let me just say two things as I conclude. One, I think we need to pay attention to the architectural design of the libraries. They are repulsive. I think the architect needs to work hard on those structures. They look like if you walk in, you're likely to walk out cold or something of that nature. And as I conclude, there are universities in this country that are purely being run on photocopied material. And you wonder, when you allow that to happen to your students, what does it portend for this country?
One minute, Honorable Kioni.
You know, that is the most dangerous thing to do. When you have a university, and these are private universities, and all that they do is photocopy books, textbooks. They would not want to spend money to buy books. That is something that needs to be discouraged, and I believe that once this board is in place, it will address itself to such things. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable David Omochieng.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I also want to lend my voice to support this very important bill, especially coming at a time when we are now more than 10 years after these new constitutions came to be. Madam Speaker, when I was growing up, we used to look forward to 18th of February every year, every 18th of every month, because the Kenya film would be bringing films to the district headquarters of the country every 18th of the month. Many people didn't have TVs that time. We didn't have one. And this used to be a one-time experience, if you could make it. Then you find children dirty and all that, barefoot, sitting down there, waiting for this. It starts at 6 o'clock, you'd go there by 4 o'clock from school, you don't even go home for supper. Because that's the only source of information about TV and anything film related. And it was so good. Now, that is not there anymore, Madam Speaker. And we assume that in the villages, people have TVs, and because phones have come, people have access to information. It's not true. And that's why today, Madam Speaker, if you look at the kind of research being produced at the universities, the level of plagiarism has gone so high up because people don't just want to read. And where you wanted to read, you can't just find books. The libraries we have, if you went there today, Madam Speaker, I have one in Ukwala, in my constituency that is a sub-branch of the National Library Services. The books that are there are 1948 books. The last time they have read that library in terms of systems and structures was 1987. And so this bill, Madam Speaker, insofar as it will invigorate and rejuvenate the workings of the library service in this country, Madam Speaker, is so welcome. This is one area that is so underfunded, Madam Speaker, so underfunded, so under-resourced, and so we're hoping that by passing this bill, Madam Speaker, and because after passing this bill, we'll be having a new budget being done in the coming months, this Parliament can then vote enough resources for this service. Because, Madam Speaker, we talk about so many things, you know, roads, airports, railways, but the one most important social infrastructure in any country is the library. And so in libraries, I mean, older people now, anybody 70, 60 in this country now knows how to read and write. And so instead of looking for homes for old people, we'll be having libraries where they could come, go and converge, share ideas, share experiences, feel welcome, community. Madam Speaker, it's Randy Brandy who said that if you don't have libraries, what do we have? No future, no past. And so we hope that when this board is finally rejuvenated, Madam Speaker, they will lend themselves to what appears now in clause number 5. It's a long list. I've heard Honorable Milo Odhiambo adding a couple of things there. I'll also add some, including, for example, working with the county governments to develop community libraries, because at the end of the day, you don't want to have this service, the only one running libraries. You want to encourage, most of the time, community libraries that are run by individuals in those communities, help them develop them, teach them how to run them, let individuals like us in this house who are privileged are able to contribute books, systems, and infrastructure to run those libraries. And the best suited institution to run or to help establish community libraries, Madam Speaker, is the county governments. And I hope that the board that's going to be set in this infrastructure would help do that. Madam Speaker, most libraries today in Kenya that were built from independence are in ruins. They're in disuse. So they'll need a lot of resources to renovate, retool, and be able to make them in a place that they can be used, Madam Speaker. And we hope that using this at clause 5, this new library system, with monies that this Parliament must vote to them, without us being told that it's not an essential, must ensure that they have resources that would enable them implement this particular provision. Madam Speaker, I have an issue. I've heard members saying clause 6 looks good, but it's so top-heavy with government officials. Madam Speaker, if you look at it, talking about PS in charge of libraries, PS in charge of finance, PS, education, PS, devolution, PS, information, and telecoms. I mean, I advise boards in the work I do. I train people. And I tell you, the biggest mistake we've made in running boards in this country is by making them top-heavy with government bureaucrats. If you're going to have like 11 members, and already 5 of them are already from government, and these are PS appointees, who most of the time are not appointed because of their any superior experience in what they have in the area. You make this being a bureaucracy, not a functioning board. And I hope that this Parliament can agree that we reduce so that we have only 2 PSs in this board, and the rest of it, let it be run by those who understand the way libraries are run, and who also fit within the framework of what we are proposing is the role of the service at clause 5. Madam Speaker, a lot of people talking about culture, folklore, heritage. Now, if you make appointment to this board, you limit it, as it's now done in clause 7(2), that even members, if alone the chair, even members must hold a degree. You may need, there's a gentleman from, I think, Rusinga, who used to run Oceanala. I don't know if he's alive today, Honorable Mili. A gentleman who used to run Oceanala. This guy has so much information about the Luo culture, the way the Luo systems were run. He probably doesn't have a degree. but he would be more useful to this board than a PS or a PS's nominee. So if you limit it, I would not mind the chair to have a degree. But the other members, if you have experience in this area, and I can tell you for a long time, training in library services was not something that Kenya was doing a lot. So you're going to find so many people with a lot of experience in library but have no degrees who would help this system, but you're now locking them out because you're saying that the board member must have a degree. So I would be moving an amendment to remove that so that board members are able to get board members from elsewhere, not necessarily, those who have degrees. Madam Speaker, a healthy nation is a nation that reads, a nation that writes, a nation that does research. Madam Speaker, I don't know whether you've checked, but in the last parliament, this parliament have been now for the last 8 years. If you look at the budget that we approve for libraries, for universities, it's laughable. In fact, there are years where we don't give universities any single cent for research. We don't give them any single money for running the libraries. So they have to scamper for resources. They have to decide whether they're going to pay salary for non-teaching staff or teaching staff or run a library. When I went in Moi University, they are lucky they were built for university by a library by a donor. It's called Margaret Thatcher Library. It's a huge thing. But if you go there, it's almost empty because the university can't afford to resource it because of lack of resources, lack of money. And so if you're going to, make this work, we must put our money where our mouths are. But Madam Speaker, great libraries build great communities. And so I heard Honorable Miller Odhiambo say this, and I want to just add my voice to it. That among the Luos, there was something called Siwinde. Siwinde, Madam Speaker, was the kind of thing that probably you run in your counties where young girls are able to be, taken through the processes of initiation as they move into adulthood. Boys, the same. Now, these have died. Parents, young parents like us, are left without devices. You don't know how to talk to your children about puberty, adulthood, and you left them. No wonder, Madam Speaker, the level of drug intake in this country among young people is terrible. And I can tell you this, it's not just a poor man's problem. Most rich people that I know, most people who are able that I know, their biggest challenge in this country today is how to keep their children off drugs. Because they didn't get a chance to talk to them early. There was no way of nurturing these young people into the next stage. And so I would imagine that having library services working well could also help us, bring back some of these ways that were used by the primordial cultures to make these kind of things work. Now, it doesn't happen because everyone goes to Google. You want to teach your children about poverty and one thing, Google. Google doesn't talk. You can only read. And so I want to propose that, Madam Speaker, even as we, even as we laud these particular processes, we must ensure that the services are set up that they are accessible in locations that, like someone said, at least in every sub-county, so that we are able to do this. And finally, Madam Speaker, as leaders, let's also have a culture of reading. Let's also have and that's why I'm very happy for these sittings nowadays, Madam Speaker, because sometimes we prepare and do research to come and talk to this house, in this house, and they're given 3 minutes, and you've done our research. Members must be encouraged to research, go to the library. I'm surprised that someone said it just, Kioni has been in this parliament for a while, and says he doesn't know what the library is. I mean, it tells you that we're not encouraging culture of reading as a house. So I would imagine that the House Business Committee, the leadership of this house, will also encourage members to read so that we are able to historically always appraise ourselves what's happening in the country. Madam Speaker, with those so many comments, I want to applaud the majority leader and hope that this can be fast-tracked and be passed.
The Honorable Wanjiku Waruguru.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for giving me this opportunity and also applaud the majority leader for being ready to bring this bill to the floor of the House, the Kenya National Library Services Board, the Kenya National Library Services Bill 2020, because it's long overdue. Madam Speaker, we need to have a conversation in how we treat the Kenya National Library and the services that they are offering to majority of us. Madam Speaker, let me, number one, acknowledge that in Laikipia, I have a number of adults who probably would wish to, go back to school. They would love to do adult learning. And most of the time we experience challenges because it doesn't look really tidy when somebody doesn't know even how to hold their pen or even to read or write. And the only area they can get material, they can only get an opportunity to go and train themselves or even access this kind of services is in a library. Madam Speaker, like you look at our sub-counties, we even can't afford to have a single, fully stocked library in majority of our areas. And particularly in areas which are arid and semi-arid, you realize there are no libraries at all. And those areas which have library centers, the books, they are not fully stocked. We do not have enough support services. They do not even have enough funding. And most of the time you realize it is always the list of items which are funded anytime we have the budget, or anytime we are discussing how to disperse resources in the Ministry of Education. And therefore, for this reason, Madam Speaker, this really exposes our ugly culture as a country in a place where most of us do not like reading. And the only thing you find in majority of our shelves are old newspapers and old magazines. In a culture whereby now we are talking about e-books, or we are talking about e-learning, we talk about long-distance learning, and talk about Google, talk about anything that has this fast world we are living in. Madam Speaker, you always realize there are materials you never access on Google. There are materials and books you never access by buying them on e-book. And for that reason, there is a need, and a big need, especially in matters to do with our culture, matters to do with where we've come from as a country. There is big need for us to dig deep into it. Maybe I would borrow from me, personally as a legislator, that most of us even do not understand where we have come as an assembly and where this country has come from for us even to enjoy this freedom we are enjoying today. May I remind myself there was a time any young person who was below the age of 35, Madam Speaker, could not be allowed to become a legislator in this National Assembly. But today we are enjoying this because there has been a history which has been worked for, labored for, and people even shed their blood. And this is the history that we need as part of our growth and even as we move from one generation to the other. Check on tourists when they come to visit this country. Is there anything that, that holds and bites a county like Laikipia, a county like Nairobi, when you come in and you want to understand what is Nairobi and why is Nairobi and what exactly is to be experienced or to be found? And you realize that we as a country, we are heavily reliant on Google. And Google is not a product, is not one of what we'll call our patented products in this country. We rely on Western culture, first world, and business people like Google and Facebooks and Twitters who have a way of manipulating our countries and manipulating the kind of content that we get access to. And therefore, I want to agree with the government, I want to agree with the leader of majority, and also majority of the stakeholders in the education, that it's time we amend this regulation. It's time we bring it up to standard and bring it to a level whereby it will relate with majority of our generations that are trying to comprehend where exactly we have come from. Finally, Madam Speaker, allow me to just comment off the cuff that even look at our media houses today, who I personally love watching miradi ya siasa, though the Honorable KJ is reminding me today we should be speaking Kiswahili. And now that Madam Speaker have set precedents that we should be speaking in English, I want to continue in English. I personally love watching documentaries from KTN, Miradi ya Siasa, which stands to be the only exciting thing if you're not in a mood to read, when you want to watch local documentaries and particularly political documentaries done by one Paul Nabiswa. And therefore, for that reason, Madam Speaker, that shows there's a big gap between even this parliament as it is. If you want to dig into archives and check, what did the Honorable Raila Odinga, the Honorable William Ruto, the Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, when they were once legislators in this honorable house, what did they say concerning a particular matter in the country? And you go to the YouTube, check on all those things, the archives are not there. If they are not in books, they are not stored in soft, where are they? If we cannot nurture and be in a position to embrace yesterday, it only means that we are not ready for tomorrow. I support.
Well said. Let's have the member for Kitui West, Honorable Nyanze.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Let me take this opportunity to actually say thank you to the leader of majority for this good act or the bill, because it's actually long overdue. If it was established in 1967 and now we are in 2021, it's actually long overdue. Today we live in a world of instant global communication through the internet access to the website, and in a way this one can dilute information, and therefore that's why we need the library services to give guidance on the kind of information which, especially to the scholars, which they should have, and the right kind of information. A research was done some times back, and it showed that especially those ones who live from 4, and most of them Kenyans, they don't get employed, they just become housewives, they also just become shamba boys, and they are not employed anywhere. The research showed that actually with the time, they become illiterate, even though they went through the education system. So the culture of reading is very important. The culture of reading is very important for Kenyans so that we don't go back and reverse, even though we've been through school. So the national, the library services is very important, especially to come up with this bill, which will give some innovation, because initially people would always just go to the physical libraries, sit there and read and do their research, but now you can access all this information online. And this online information should actually be guided by the same libraries. They should guide this information, which includes, which gives access to different services through e-books, through in-journals, through databases, and this can assist in studies, especially to give the right kind of information. So the library services will give guidance, especially with the improved technology. There is need to guide on the right kind of information. The libraries should take modern approach to providing access to information, collection and services in a manner that leverages both physical and digital information. And in doing so, they will ensure that the reading culture is actually guided in the right way. So I support that what some of my colleagues have said, that community libraries are very important, and I would support that we have libraries, especially if possible, in each constituency. We can even use resources, because actually the libraries get very little allocation of our budget. But if this budget can be channeled through the CDF, and then we ensure that we have a library in each constituency, then this would be taking libraries closer to the communities. And this would really ensure that the reading culture is improved. And there's also a need to equalize education. You find that in the libraries, you'll find books which are not adequate, especially for the physically challenged, especially the blind. You will still see the information, but it's not adequate, especially for the deaf. And it's for the Kenya National Examination Council, you find that they give the same exams to these people who are physically challenged. So this one should also be taken up to ensure that education is equal to all Kenyans. Because you find that, like I went to a certain school, and I found that the blind and also the deaf are exposed to the same exams, yet the tools are not adequate for them. So in coming up with the national library services, they will ensure that they will also cater for these ones who are physically challenged, in ensuring that they have the right kind of material in these libraries. So with that, Madam Speaker, I support the bill, which is actually timely. Thank you.
Honorable Chachu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I stand to support the Kenya National Library Service Bill, Bill number 5 of 2020. Madam Speaker, this bill will enable us to do many things. Among others, to enable us to develop our literature, promote financing of cultural celebrations, promote our cultures and traditions, and as well finance research at many levels. Madam Speaker, it will enable us to create a community of readers, spending their time productively. Madam Speaker, in the Western world, where I was privileged to live for many years, there are book clubs where actually people form clubs and they come together once a week or twice to read books. And through that, they enrich each other with knowledge, they enlighten each other, and even really grow knowledge and wisdom. Madam Speaker, reading culture is critical for enrichment, for enlightenment, and for growth of knowledge, as I earlier said. Madam Speaker, this bill would provide opportunities for scholars, for students, for researchers, and senior members of our society. In Western world, Madam Speaker, senior members actually volunteer their times in those libraries, and sometimes they even spend time in those libraries to actually do their own memoirs or even write articles. And in doing so, they contribute to the growth of literature in their communities. Madam Speaker, it's critical for our parliament to allocate resources so that we can realize those objectives in our constitution which has enabled us now to come up with this bill. There's no point for us to pass a bill here and we don't resource it well, those institutions that it creates, so that we are able to fully realize the objectives of those institutions. Madam Speaker, it's very, very important that once we establish these libraries, especially at national level, to really invest in translation software. Madam Speaker, it's really critical that we are able to benefit from the wisdom of the great writers who are from Francophone countries or Lusophone countries. Lusophone are those who write in Portuguese, Francophone are those who write in French. It really enables us to really have insights from across the world. Madam Speaker, library is a shared function between the two levels of government, national and county level. And I really hope both levels of government will finance this service so that Kenyans, whether in national capital cities or in their counties, are able to benefit from the library services in their country. Madam Speaker, I just want to share an experience as why reading culture can really be useful. In 10th Parliament, Madam Speaker, I traveled as part of the delegation for UN General Assembly. And among our delegation was late John Michuki. I didn't know, I was just a young parliamentarian, this 10th Parliament, just joined Parliament. And this is a very senior member of our government and Parliament. And I didn't have much to share with him. But in course of a trip, which is about almost 2 weeks trip in New York, I came to realize that we actually had the same, we are all reading the same book by a scholar called Dan Brown. He wrote many books. Da Vinci Code is the one that's well known. Lately he wrote a book on hell and Da Vinci book is one. Lost Symbol is the other one. And Inferno, the latest, which is about hell and heaven, or the concept of that. And since we were able to, we had the same author, and we were all avid readers of his books, and there are many, Madam Speaker, especially Da Vinci Code, which was really critical about Catholicism, and we are both Catholics, and it really made fun about Jesus, that he was married to Mary Magdalene, that actually left the church in her hand, not Peter. And through that, we actually shared a lot. It was an icebreaker for both of us, and by sharing, the many books that were written by Dan Brown, which were both avid readers, we were able to break ice, and I got to know him very, very well. Madam Speaker, this bill will really create opportunities for our students, for our scholars, as well as many other people who would like to invest in this field. Madam Speaker, I really want to appreciate people like the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. Through his memoirs, Enigma of Kenyan Politics, which is an autobiography about him written by a Nigerian writer, and even Flame of Hope, I was able to get so much insight about Kenyan politics, especially at independence and even during the Kenyatta era. Madam Speaker, this is really, really important, and it really enables us to really get insights about this country. And once we know our history, for sure we will also be able to, will be well guided to where we are going. Madam Speaker, it's really, really important that when we set up these libraries, Madam Speaker, we make them real libraries of our times. Because, Madam Speaker, we have to invest in digital library, or what we call e-library. We must invest in modern library infrastructure and technologies so that, Madam Speaker, we are able to get information from across the world on 24-hour basis. Because once other people are sleeping in this part of the world, others are awake because of the time difference. And our students and our researchers are able to really, really fully benefit. So I really hope once these institutions are enhanced or are set up, they will be able to conform with how libraries are run, are managed, and are resourced across the world. Madam Speaker, with those few remarks, I support this bill.
Honorable Abdisalan, 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I also support this motion. And from the onset, I want to say that as a country, we have poor reading habits. And as parents, we have a poor reading culture. I'm saying this because we act as role model for our children. And if we go home and we rarely read either any of the information materials, then definitely the child will not also read. And if the child does not read, then definitely you expect poor performance in school, you expect in discipline cases and all that. But that said, we also have a very wrong perception where we read so as to pass exam, which is not really the case. Actually, Kenyans have the tendency of depending on word of mouth. Instead of reading so as to access accurate information, they have the tendency of depending on words of mouth to get information. That way, there is a lot of misconception and, of course, dissemination of inaccurate information. And that is what is happening in BBI today. In the event that everybody would have read the document, read well, make an informed decision, then this aspect of misconception, campaigning, and moving up and down would have drastically reduced. So I want to say that as a country, we must take drastic steps to improve the reading culture, because a reading nation is a healthy nation. A reading nation is an informed nation. A reading nation is an empowered nation. And that way, we will improve the lives and livelihood of, the livelihood of our population. If we have a reading nation, then definitely we will have drastic reduction of crimes in this country. Madam Speaker, we should go not only depend on the static library, but we must take drastic effort of taking information to the doorsteps of the community. I am aware that as we are speaking, Kenya National Library Services is doing its best to take something like traveling libraries, for example, using buses. They have also come up with innovative measures in northern Kenya, where they are even trying to take information using Camel, what they call the Camel Library, to those who can't access the static library. And of course, other ways like what they call the book service, where the information material is, of course, lent to the readers for a specific period of time. But we must come up with other innovative measures of delivering information to Kenyans without even moving,
Order, Honorable Abdisalan.
That said, Madam Speaker,
Order.
I support.
Order, Honorable Abdisalan. I'm just trying to help you. Your 2 minutes are over for this particular time. You still have a balance of 8 minutes. So kindly look out in the order paper when the bill comes back again for second reading. Then you can claim your 8 minutes. You can organize your thoughts and then come up again. And that applies to the other members who were eager to contribute, because this is a debate which has elicited a lot of interest. So we'll have more time to continue. Honorable members, the time now being 6:31 p.m., this House stands adjourned until today, Thursday, 18th of February 2021 at 7 p.m.